Now is the time, a time you'll look back on, a time you adopt as inspiration. You will recollect this time, this moment, right now. Motivate yourself towards success. Overcome, take over. The time is now.
Good evening and welcome to Loaded Bag and UFC. We are back. The big match preview is back, and it seems like we've been doing these a lot recently over recent weeks. But look, things are getting tense. Things are moving thick and fast in the race for European football, and in particular the race for Champions League. And we're going to discuss it all today, tonight, wherever you are in the world. We know some are from down south, down under. So welcome into the chat. But first of all, the main man, the old Brandy and Blaze, is back in business. Chrissy Hall, how are you doing, fella?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, how's things with you? You okay, Pete?
Yeah, difficult day. As you loaded boys know, for me personally. But yeah, it is what it is, and we are here to talk football, which I'm very, very happy about, which will be a nice change for me. But look, from your perspective, Villa away, Villa Park, what are your thoughts going into Saturday, mate?
Do you know what? I'm in a funny place, which I've not been in for a good number of weeks. I've got to be honest, I'm nervous over it. I'm really, really nervous over it. I feel like, we've had 3 fantastic wins on the bounce, 3 really difficult games. If you'd have said to me a month or so ago, you'll beat Man United at St James's, and then you'll go to Brentford and get 3 points. You'll go to West Ham and get 3 points. I've probably gone, that's a bit much, that. And now we're going to arguably one of the informed teams in the league, going to Villa Park, and we know that there's a little bit of history there, should we say. So I just don't know whether emotions might get the better of us, whether, we've got anything left in the tank. And also, Pete, I'll be honest, given the position that we've put ourselves in now, will Eddie Howe be looking at this game and thinking, this isn't a, the be all end all. This isn't the game that will determine whether or not we get top 4. And I'm actually wondering whether, he maybe rests a couple of players. I don't know, because it's a tight schedule. We've got a lot of fixtures coming up. And I think when we discussed on a show, I can't remember the name of which show it was, but we were talking about, points that we could potentially pick up and games where we saw that we may potentially drop points. And I think we all agreed that, this game was going to be the game that was up there as being a tough one. And you're going to Villa Park as well, aren't you, Pete?
I'll be there in the away end, supporting the black and white boys. Fingers crossed they get me the win. But I remember you guys, when we did the build-up, that you guys all thought that this might be a loss, and I refused to have it.
You weren't having it.
I was like, it cannot be. But look, you made some really good points, Chris. It is a big game. Lots of different talking points. But as always, we get the opposition's view, and we've got 2 fantastic guests that we're going to bring on very, very shortly. But look, I want to give a massive shout out to so many, pushing 80 to 100 already in the chat. We've got Geordie Mick. Welcome back, Geordie Mick. It's great to see you back, by the way. Hadn't seen you for a while. I hope you're well and you're recovered. Simon's in the chat. Welcome, Simon. Lisa, obviously our resident spanner, is in the chat. Mark Todd. Rich Dublin, welcome in. We have many others as well, and I'm just clicking through. We've got Tom Dixon right at the top with some questions, some good questions coming in already as well. And of course, we've got Mr. Daz Shocks. It wouldn't be away days without having Daz in the chat as well. Michael Palmer's just sneaked in there, and Simon BA is popped in there too, along with many others. But look, this is the away days. This is the opposition view, and we are delighted to have two fantastic guests. And with Rich not being able to join us, and I blame Rich Joblin on this because of your comments on Battleground 3. Don't think I don't remember that. He's not able to make it, but we have a fantastic a replacement from the Villa Pop Pod, and that's Kevin. So welcome in, Kevin. How you doing?
How you doing, gents? All right. Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. Pleasure to have you. And of course, coming back for more, we've got from Total Screamers podcast, we have Billy. How you doing, Billy?
I'm very well, thank you, lads. How are we all doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Great to have you both on, guys. And I think we said it before we're on air, is a bit of a tag team, isn't it, tonight? You boys, first time you're meeting, but you boys are kind of coming together to fight the Villa cause.
Absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
Yeah, see what happens at the end, shall we? Yeah, see what happens.
Definitely, but no, great to have you on. And look, the questions are flying in, and we will come to those questions at some point with regards to all things Villa and Newcastle. But one of the things I'm going to talk to you about, and we asked Rich about this on the Battlegrounds 3, is the form table. Look at that form table there, 6th in the table, but not just that. You've got 4 wins on the bounce, no defeats in 5. Looking rosy for you boys, isn't it? What
no defeats in 7, actually, mate.
No wins in 7. Wow.
No defeats in 7. We've won 4 on the bounce.
I'm preempting what I expect it to be over the next 5 games. Is that there's no win. But look, you guys, you must be absolutely buzzing in what you're seeing right now. Billy, I'll come to you first. Not just on the form guide, but just what have you made of this kind of transition? Because am I right in thinking it is a transition in terms of how you're playing now and what you're putting together in the back end of the season?
Yeah, I mean, Unai Emery came in and just instantly said, this is how we're going to play and this is how we're going to do it. This is going to be my team going forward. And it's just working so well. It just looks like his style of football just suits our players perfectly. We've got to remember, this is still a majority. Well, it is a Steven Gerrard side, bar 2 signings that he brought in January, one of which was a left back, and the other of which was a 19-year-old striker to back up Ollie Watkins. So this is still a Steven Gerrard team, and to do what he's done so far after 5-6 months, it's just incredible. And we've got a tough run in. I'm looking forward to the game at the weekend because it's a real good test for us. We've already beat Man United since he came in. We've beaten Brighton. We've beaten Spurs. We've beaten big teams that are above us, and it's a real opportunity now for us to really lay down a marker and finish as strong as we can. And in my opinion, anyway, I don't know what Kevin thinks, but Europe's in our hands at the minute. We play. The rest of our games are the majority of them anyway, are against teams above us and in and around us. So if we can pick up wins, we can pick up wins here, there, and everywhere. It's in our own hands. We're 6th in the league. It can come to Villa Park, and I think it can if we can continue the form.
Yeah, look, there was a reason we had you, and I'll come to you on this, Kev. There's a reason we had Rich Sutherland from your channel on Battleground Europe 3, and I think it's fair to say, and I think Rich is already in the chat. He's already put something my way. He was kind of questioned straight away. Is it why is he even here? Like, you're not fighting for Europe, you're not in there. And then the transformation in the weeks that have gone on since that have just kind of proven that point. I mean, what have you made of this transition? And honestly, where do you see yourself finishing up? Because as Billy's just said, it is kind of in your hands. Looking at your remaining fixtures, you do play everyone in the top half of the table.
Yeah, I think it would be like if I kind of stumbled into a Hollywood party somehow. Like the looks that I'd be getting in that room are probably the looks that Rich was getting on that pod. You're like, what the hell is he doing here? This 42-year-old Brummie. Villa have been nowhere really, for ages in terms of being in the hunt for. God, I wouldn't say Europe in terms of the hunt for top 10. We flirted with it a little bit under the sort of the COVID season when we had an amazing start. And I'll go actually one point further from what Billy said. This isn't Gerrard's team at the moment. This is Dean Smith's team. Because the Gerrard signings, Coutinho's been injured, Kamara's currently injured, then Donker doesn't play, Bednarek went back to Southampton. So really, it's and Diego Carlos has been long-term injured as well. He's only come back into the squad. So Bar Moreno, the left back, this is an entire team that we had under Dean Smith. So the transformation from a team that stayed up basically last day of the season, finished 11th in the league, then he lost his job, then Gerrard came in. It's just something that Villa fans couldn't have dreamed of. And it's gone beyond that new manager bounce now. I mean, you've got the form guide there. Billy mentioned it. I mean, it's 6 wins out of 7. We've only conceded 1 goal in open play in 7 matches. And it was that, I don't know if you've seen the Harvey Barnes goal he got in the 2-1 defeat. Great goal.
Great goal. Yeah. Brilliant goal.
That's the only goal we've conceded. I mean, we've been a bit of a flat track bully and beaten quite a few teams we probably should have beaten. But Villa historically come unstuck against the Watfords, the Burnleys, those kind of type of teams. So it's been absolutely unbelievable. And Villa fans, I think, are pinching themselves that we've got a manager of this caliber that's made us tough to beat. That's given us a little bit of an identity. We're playing out from the back. There's been some challenges with it, and for us to be in the conversation around top 6, top 7 in April is unbelievable. So yeah, I just think it's a really exciting time to be. Clearly, for Newcastle fans, it's a great time for you guys. But it's actually nice, I think, generally, because I know there's been a bit of needle between the clubs, not for me personally, but past, but 2 proper football teams with a great history that are up there now. Knocking on the door of Europe, Champions League, obviously, you guys, and Europa League for us.
No, I think that's more than fair, and you guys have certainly put yourself right in the mix of everything. Chris, I want to get your thoughts on Villa. Like, what have you made of their kind of transition really into not just the top half of the table, but into the European conversation? Were you surprised by it? And just an added point onto that, I certainly wasn't aware of what Kev said in terms of not conceding only 1 open goal, goal in open play in the last 7 games. That surprised me genuinely. What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, to touch on that last point, yeah, I didn't realize it was they conceded so little. I mean, Villa have been playing really well, and I think they've kind of come out of nowhere. I mean, for me personally, like I had no doubt that Emery would do better than Gerrard. I think Gerrard rode on the crest of a wave, didn't he, from his time at Rangers? And then I can see why he took the Villa job, because it's a huge club back in the Premier League, and I think there was an opportunity there, and he had a good squad of players, and unfortunately it just didn't work out. But am I surprised that Villa? Yeah, I suppose I am surprised, because I would have expected something like this next season. I thought it would kind of be, Emery would come in and kind of patch things up and maybe try and secure them a top 10 finish, but I didn't think that they would do as well as they have. And, full credit to Emery for that, because it's been a really big turnaround. And now, the form that we've been in, and the fact that, we're playing the likes of Man United, etc., and we're going, yeah, well, we'll beat them. But the fact that we're all nervous about, well, not all of us, but I am anyway, and I'm sure a few others are as well, going to Villa Park, it's no longer seen as like, an opportunity to just turn up and take you 3 points. It's a difficult ground to go to, and it's been like that over the years, but now more so than ever, it's going to be a big ask. And as I say, there's been a big run of games, and it's genuinely one of those games where I could see either of the 3 options happening, whether it be a home win, away win, or a draw. And that's credit to Emery and credit to the players, for getting themselves in gear. And the lads have already said Emery's only brought in 2 players: Moreno, who looks like is a really good left back, and the young lad up top to replace Watkins if and when necessary. But talking of Watkins has been a breath of fresh air, hasn't he? He's come out of the traps, hasn't he, since Emery's come in?
Let's talk about him. Great segue, Chris. Ollie Watkins seems to be finding the net all the time at the moment. Like, what have you boys made of his rise? I have to say, and Chris, you might agree with me with regards to this. There's a lot of fans, and a lot of not necessarily Newcastle fans, just fans in general. When you hear Ollie Watkins talked about, they don't rate him. They don't rate him. They don't think he's a good player, but he seems to be churning in the goals. Like, what do you make of him from a Villa perspective?
Do you want to go on that?
Yeah, let's start with Billy. Go, Billy.
Yeah.
Try with it.
Well, to be honest with you on Watkins, I've been, particularly the beginning of the season and last season, I was quite a big critic of his because of the amount of chances that he would often miss. Since Emery, that's just not really happened. I can think of maybe a couple off the top of my head where you think, yeah, he should probably have scored that one. But for the most part, he's been taking his chances. And that's ultimately what the difference has been. I think as well, under Emery, he's been given more of a basic role. He's spoken about himself of under previous managers, he would he'd be doing a lot more off the ball, whereas Emery says, just do this, just do such and such, and he does it, and he's reaping the rewards for it as well. Another thing I want to point out with Watkins as well is a stat that came up the other day. Other than Harry Kane and Mohamed Salah, Ollie Watkins is the only player to score 10 goals in the past 3 seasons.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's not a bad striker by any means. But again, like I say, he just needs to take his chances more often, which he has been doing of late. And he's up there for the England strikers, in my opinion. He's not going to get in ahead of Kane, obviously. Ivan Toney's up there, Callum Wilson's up there, but I think Ollie Watkins is certainly in the conversation for an England call up again. Sorry, and who can deny him of that in this vein of form as well?
Nah, Kev, your thoughts on Ollie Watkins? Is there anything different or anything to add with regards to your opinion on Watkins from what Billy's just said?
Well, 9 goals in the last 11 games for Ollie Watkins. Yeah, it's a shame actually this game's not at your place now because he scored in 6 away games in a row. So I think the last player to do that was Aguero in 2017. The great thing about Villa right now is, as a Villa fan, is I'm sure Billy will concur with this, is Emery's like slaying dragons of different things that we couldn't get past. We would never win in our third kit. We'd never win away from home. We'd never beat 10 men. We'd never, all these different things. We haven't beat Man United at home since 1995, I think it was. You'll win nothing with kids. Remember that, right? No. That season. Yeah. Every year, buying a Man United home ticket for a Villa fan was like, it was literally like you're wasting your money, right? And we've won that. So, and for Villa, Watkins he scored 1 goal before Emery came. So I just think that, look, I echo a lot of what Billy says. I was fair critic of Watkins, and I really have, turned that around quite a lot lately because of the form he's been in. He's an interesting type of player because he's got a fantastic attitude. But Dean Smith said about Watkins, he was the best pressing centre forward in the league. That's what Dean Smith always used to say. He's not doing that level of pressing now. He's staying way more around the opposition box, and he's finishing goals. And he worked so much on his finishing. And he was getting pelters on social media because there was all these videos of him with a finishing coach, and he was missing chances. But 9 and 11s is nothing to be sniffed at. The one criticism I have of Watkins is this: he very rarely scores more than 1 goal in a game. And I think for top strikers, there's times you're getting the odd hat trick, maybe getting a couple of braces here and there, but he very rarely does that. But right now, for the form that he's in, and that's 10 plus goals the last 3 seasons, I don't really know there's many players you'd swap him with right now if you're a Villa fan.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, Chris, I'll come to you before we move on. Ollie Watkins, like, have you watched? Like, I don't know how closely you've watched him, but just what do you make of him from the outside looking in, as like a non-Villa player, a Villa fan? Are you someone that watched him and thinks, wow, he's a top player, or are you like some other fans out there that don't see the quality that he produces?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Up until maybe the last 11 games, I always kind of felt that Watkins was a little bit. I always got the impression he was a hard worker, and like he'd run the channels, he'd run all day for you. Like you can see his work rate and you can see his effort, but I always kind of felt like he wasn't as prolific when it comes to having that opportunity. He did strike me as one of those players who would need 4 or 5 chances before he put one away. Not to say he's a bad player, but I know Villa forked out north of 30 million for him, didn't they? If I'm correct in saying that. And I don't know. I suppose I always thought like he was kind of the bridesmaid, never the bride. Like he'd have little spells, little runs, and he'd go on little runs, and you think, oh, decent player. But then I mean, I don't watch him as much as these two lads. I don't watch him week in, week out. But whenever I saw him, I always kind of thought like, good player, but is he really like a top 8, top 10 player Premier League? I'm not so sure. But the form he's in now, maybe it did just take for him to be under a manager who believed in him, a manager who trusted him. And now he's starting to reap the rewards, because Villa have got some really like interesting players. And when I say interesting, that's probably me downplaying it a bit, but they've got some dangerous players, should I say? The likes of Buendia, the likes of Coutinho, the likes of Bailey. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Bailey. I think Bailey's a really, really good player. Not maybe the most consistent.
You can have him. Take him.
I was just going to say a similar thing.
Are you not a fan of Bailey?
Oh no, he's horrendous in my opinion. I give him penalties every week.
Yeah.
He's got his touch. I mean, he'll either do something unbelievable, but most of the time I know wingers can be streaky. I know that absolutely, the best ones, but he's been. I don't know what Billy thinks, but I just think he's been a massive flop for Villa. I mean, we spent the Grealish money on Watkins. Sorry, on Buendia, Bailey, and Ings. Ings is scoring in the Conference League for West Ham tonight. He's gone there. Buendia's been better this season, but still hasn't been the record signing levels you'd expect. And Bailey's been very, very hit and miss for me. If we got rid of him in the summer, I wouldn't be surprised, and I wouldn't give 2 hoots. I'd rather, honestly. We had El Ghazi, who would bang you a goal in every now and then. Bertrand Traore, I think he's a better shout in the team for him right now. Bailey's been, for me, a huge disappointment in the Villa shirt. You can't rely on him.
Yeah, is that why he constantly gets dropped? Because I see like he'll go on a run and he'll play like 1, maybe 2, 3 games, and you see he has little clips, where like he'll hit the bar or you'll do a little jink and he'll put a cross in or something like that. And you think, bloody hell, he's a good player him. And then all of a sudden he'll just be dropped. And then you think, why is he not playing? But is that for what you're saying?
He's played a lot actually under Emery, but I think that's been because of the lack of options. I mean, Gerrard's, I don't know if all the wingers at the club were sleeping with his wife, but like he got rid of everyone. Philogene Bidace got on loan to Cardiff. Trezeguet got sent to Egypt. El Ghazi got shipped out. Traore got shipped out. We had absolutely no width, so I think Emery almost hasn't got many options. And then when Coutinho got injured, he's either playing a midfielder wide. So I think that's why Bailey's played quite a bit. But I feel for the lad. His stepdad / agent says he's like the best player in the world. That doesn't help. No, he's. I was going to say with our attacking players, and back to Watkins briefly. The one thing he just doesn't have, which is what you guys have got with Isak, he isn't going to score something from out of nothing very often. I mean, he's really worked on his finishing, but he's not that level of star quality potential basically with Watkins. And we thought we were going to get that with a Bailey based on his Bundesliga, record, but it's been a very, very sort of hit and miss.
To be fair, looking at it right now, I'm just looking in the chat, and you got Villa 1982 that's in agreement. Like, as soon as you boys said that, I was shocked, and then I looked at the chat and he was like, yeah, you shit. And I was really surprised.
Yeah.
Now, that really surprised me, because of the fact that you boys have said you heavily invested in him. and coming from Leverkusen, he was looked at by a lot of teams. I know Arsenal were really keen on him as well.
Yeah.
So the fact that you got him was both a surprise and I thought a statement of where you guys were going to go. But no, really, really interesting with regards to that. That's for sure. But I just want to press pause for a second, just because we've got 150 in the chat. So welcome everyone in the chat tonight that's watching the show. If you haven't already, just click that thumbs up, that like button. And if you haven't already, especially the Villa fans in there, just click that subscribe. We will be doing a review show after the game on Saturday evening. So you may want to come and listen to what we've got to say on that. But yeah, welcome everyone in the chat tonight. Yeah, really, really interesting. Great to get your thoughts. And this is why we do away days, is because our opinions from the outside looking in are very different to what you guys see, because you see everything every day and every week when you guys play. And it's kind of the other way around, really, because we'll talk a little bit now in reverse with regards to Newcastle. So equally, we went on a run of 6-7 games of not getting a win, and we were in a bit of a slump, and we weren't sure if we were going to come out of it. But since the Wolves game, we have come out of it, and we are currently on a 5-win run, sitting third in the table in the Premier League right now on 56 points. And at this point now, there is a lot more talk, not just from our fan base, but in the media, about our potential Champions League push. Now, I'll come to you boys first, because obviously we've talked about going to Villa Park and playing you boys, and you're flying right now. But what is your mindset going into this game on Saturday as Villa fans that are in a great position and in great form right now, coming up against a team that are equally in very, very good form in Newcastle United? But Billy, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts at this moment?
To be honest with you, I'm looking forward to this game purely because it shows where we are as Emery's transitional phase, if you like it. If we can get 3 points against you, it really slaps down a marker and says, we're here. Welcome to the big boys kind of thing, if you know what I'm trying to say. We're here to compete. We're not just here. This isn't just a purple patch. We are here and the fact that there's a few of you that are nervous about this game just shows how far we've come as well. Because that wasn't the case when I came on earlier in the season. Yes, we'd just got rid of Gerrard. Emery I think he'd just been appointed or something like that. And it was, we'd just come off the back of a 4-0 at home to Brentford. And then to lose 4-0 at your place, and that performance as well, it was a very Steven Gerrard performance about it. From where we were back then, this game just gives us a real good marker to put down and kind of say that this is where Villa are now. It's the two form sides in the league, barring Man City and Arsenal, of course. It's us two. We're the next big boys, if you like, at the minute. And I think as a neutral as well, it's just going to be a fantastic game to watch. Yeah. And I think you've got a lot more to lose than we have, in my opinion, if that makes sense.
No, interesting point. Kev, what have you made of Newcastle's season so far, but certainly their resurgence in form in the last few weeks? And, how does that impact on you guys from your perspective going into the game on Saturday? Well,
first things first, I'm really nervous about the game. Really nervous about the game. I am. I think because it means so much for where we are. It's a massive litmus test for us. When you were struggling to score for a bit, weren't you? A couple of months back. And that sort of similar sort of time to our bad spell. We had a good spell when Emery came on board, and we lost 3 on the bounce. Admittedly, the one was to Man City and one was to Arsenal. We were massively in both those games, and we had a disappointing loss to Leicester at home when we just were error strewn. Other than that, we've been really good in Emery, but that coincided, I think, with your bad run of form. We've subsequently bounced back from that, as we said. no loss in 7, won 6 of those games. And you've clearly been in fantastic. I keep watching your results, a few weeks ago thinking, we can catch Newcastle, if we keep this up, and you just keep winning and winning and winning. And it might be a bit of a grand statement, but I think this is our biggest game of the season for me. Because beating Chelsea away, Chelsea at the moment, I think the 4 of us and a couple of the guys from the chat have beat Chelsea at the moment,
We would.
And United aren't the team they used to be, and we've, for us where we are, we've put ourselves. I almost liken it to a team qualifying for like a national team qualifying for a major tournament. It's all well and good being good in the qualification. England are great at that, aren't they? Win 10 out of 10. But this is the business end now. And if Villa really do want to knock through that door rather than knock on the door this season and kick on an extra year or 2 ahead of schedule, like Newcastle getting Champions League this season would be the same sort of thing in terms of the kind of players you can bring in and the profile of the club. We've got to be taking opportunities, I think, in games like this. It won't define our season because we've got plenty of chances against Brentfords and Brightons and Liverpools, but you are the team right now that are, I think, as to be as feared as anyone outside of Arsenal and City. I won't really fearing playing Liverpool. I'm not really fearing playing. Wouldn't fear playing Man United, Brighton maybe, but Newcastle. You got great front 2. You got some really, really, really good players. The other thing with Newcastle for me as a Villa fan is, like, I'm watching some of these players and I'm thinking, why Willock and Longstaff and Joe Linton, the player, Shaw. I remember Shaw playing years ago when we used to always beat you. Yeah. And all of a sudden now these players have turned into Champions League level qualification players. And I mean, throw it back to you. What's happened to the likes of a Willock and a Longstaff? How are these players playing at this level of performance week in, week out?
Chris, I'll let you take the floor on that. It's a great question from Kev. He's quite right in saying we were down fighting for our lives with the likes of Shaw, Willock, Joe Linton,
Jacob Murphy, another one that I'm surprised at yet.
Jacob Murphy, Miguel Almiron. What's been the change in your opinion?
For me, it's quite simple. Just one man, Eddie Howe. I think that is literally it, Kev. I mean, it's nice. It's nice that you've come on tonight, Kev, to say that, about certain players, because if you believe a lot of, what media outlets and everyone are saying, that, we've bought our way to top 4 potentially. It's nice when you talk about these players that we've had under the likes of Bruce and even further back than that. And they're now starting to look the real deal. So the likes of Murphy, the likes of Longstaff, the likes of Willock, the likes of Shaw, and many more as well. And I think the reason that we're outperforming, or the reason that we're playing so well at the minute, is purely down to Eddie Howe. I can't understate the job he's done since he's come in. Like, he's just been absolutely brilliant. Yes, we've had a helping hand. We've made some really important additions, little touches of quality, the likes of Isak, the likes of Bruno, the likes of Botman, but a lot of the time, it's these players that were seemingly written off, not just by other people, but by ourselves. The likes of Miguel Almiron, he's a prime example, and Joe Linton. Rewind 2 years ago, and we were all saying, forget this takeover, we'll get rid of Miguel Almiron, we'll get rid of Joe Linton, and we'll bring in better players. But now, the likes of Joe Linton and Miguel Almiron especially, we're looking forward to seeing them hopefully playing black and white for a number of years to come. And yeah, for me, the reason that we are where we are, and the reason that our squad is looking so sound at the moment, is purely down to Eddie Howe and his coaching staff. They've been brilliant since they come in day one. And we were devastated. Well, I say devastated. Pete wasn't, but I particularly was disappointed when Emery didn't come to Newcastle, because when we were linked with Emery, I was thinking, great, he's the kind of manager that we want. And then when Eddie Howe come in, I was a little bit like, I was a little bit underwhelmed. But literally couldn't ask for a better manager. And if he carries on the way he's going, he's going to be mentioned in the same breath as the likes of Keegan and Bobby Dobson.
There's so many similarities as well, I think, with those points about Newcastle, because if you look at, I'm sure Billy will know this as well, if you look at the Villa team's first game of the season, Gerrard, on the bench, Watkins, Louise, Mings, Buendia, some of these players that are now absolute core quality of our team, weren't even in the team. So we've got a lot of players that a lot of Villa fans have written off. Douglas Luiz used to get pelters for being inconsistent. Watkins, we've discussed. Mings is, I think he's still very sort of seen as very hit and miss by a lot of people now. But in terms of sort of like, Villa players now, they've really come to the fore and really started to show themselves.
Yeah, definitely. I will just on a side note give Jacob Murphy his flowers, because I don't think any manager in this Premier League would have got Jacob Murphy doing what he's doing right now. We do a show called Squad Games, where we look at our squad and look at who's going to be shipped out, who's going to be kept for the season. And I think all of us were like, Jacob Murphy's gone. Like, if we can get rid of him, it is only because he's on a big contract that we thought he was going to stay. But Eddie Howe has not only kept him in the squad, but he's actually made him an effective sub. So he was coming on and having an effect, whether it was just holding the fort and seeing us through to 3 points in some games, to now starting games and having an effect on the pitch from the beginning of the match. And I fully expect him to start on Saturday. And he's almost like a traditional old school 90s winger. He'll just run at his man and whip the ball into the box. I always liken him to the Newcastle's Keith Gillespie, for example, in the 90s, or the Man United's Andre Kanchelskis. The just classic, just run down the wing, whip it in. And he's kept it really simple, but he's become so effective. And to have someone like him that's come in, and it's only really started in the last few weeks, but come in at a crucial time and helped us to win the games that he's won, that could potentially get not just the club or the players, but himself Champions League football. When he was playing at Sheffield Wednesday, middle of the table in the Championship a couple of, I think 2 or 3 years ago, is just testimony to what Chris has said about the job that Eddie Howe's done. And it's a great point, and you've segued onto it nicely, is that, you talked about Unai Emery doing exactly the same, making the difference to a number of your players that are now core to what you guys are doing in the squad. So it's a really, really interesting one. I want to get to some questions, but there's a couple of players that I wanted to talk about from a Villa perspective, because they do have a link with Newcastle. And first of all, I was interested to see on Saturday when you played Forest at home that Luca Dean wasn't in the starting lineup; he was on the bench, and that you had Moreno, who's come in and done a really good job. You guys paid 25 million for him, and we were in for him last January. We genuinely wanted him. How is he getting on? I'll be honest, I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's not playing regular and featured in your team. But is there a reason for that? And I don't know whether you can elaborate on that, boys. I don't know who wants to take the reins with that one.
I think with Luca Dean, it's just been all a little bit underwhelming. I think under Gerrard, he was probably the Luca Dean style was probably a perfect fit for Gerrard's system. He likes to attack, he likes to get forward, he likes to put crosses in. That's what Steven Gerrard's system was, bomb the fullbacks on. Under Emery, he liked his left back going forward, and he likes his right back kind of sitting back, which we see with Ashley Young. But there's not really been that much of a difference between Matt Targett and Luca Dean. It just looks like he hasn't really properly settled. Maybe I don't know if that's probably the right term to use. It just hasn't really worked out how we would have all liked for it to have worked out. And Moreno's come in. He was thrown in at the deep end with his debut. I can't remember who it was against off the top of my head, but Luca Dean started 10-15 minutes into the game, goes off with an injury. Luckily, we brought in Alex Moreno just at the right time, and he struggled a little bit, but he's landed on his feet. He's just been fantastic. Defensively, he can be a little bit questionable at times, but going forward, he puts a great delivery in. He's quick as well, so he can get round the defender, where you didn't really have that with Luca Dean or Matt Targett. And he's just been fantastic for us. I don't know what you think, Kev. but I absolutely love him, to be honest with you.
I think for 14 million, whatever it was, it's been in this kind of like, era of Premier League football. I think it's been a bit of a steal. Digne, for me, a lot of Villa fans were saying this, and it's true, is you couldn't really see the difference between Digne and Target. You sell Target to get an upgrade. It's another one that Gerrard did. Obviously, Coutinho's massively flattered to deceive and has been largely a disappointment, particularly this season when he's played. Digne is another one. He's not in the team on merit, even though he's fit right now. And I think underwhelm's the right word. We haven't seen that Everton level quality that he was producing for a period of time when he was almost a shoe-in for your fantasy team. Luca Digne, left back, when Everton were doing okay. He's played for Barcelona, he's played for Roma, he's played for some big teams, and I think he's still just this side of 30, and yet we've not seen that level of performance. He seemed like he's lacking a bit of pace. His delivery's not been fantastic, and I think he's also been found out a lot defensively. So yeah, he's been someone that he's not in the team on merit at the moment.
No, it's like I said, it was a real interesting one for me, but it's great to get your perspective, and I have seen a little bit of Mourinho, and he does look a good player, so more than capable of keeping Luca Digne at the team. Were you surprised about that, Chris? Seeing Luca Digne on the bench and not really getting a sniff at Villa, and considering their upturn in form?
Yeah, I mean, whenever I think of Luca Digne, obviously I know he was playing for Everton, so obviously I saw quite a lot of him, and I know that we really wanted him. Well, I'm pretty sure we really wanted him. Yeah. So yeah, it was disappointing when he made the move to Villa, because I think with Luca Digne, he offers you that set piece danger as well. So having someone who's capable of hitting a free kick in from 20-25 yards, that's always a big plus. But yeah, I mean, I knew of Moreno. I'm trying to think what club in La Liga he played for. Was it Sociedad?
Real Betis.
Or was it Betis? Yeah, and he's been in and around the fringes of the Spanish squad in the past, I think. But yeah, I was surprised that Luca Digne had been put in as substitute or his understudy, because I just automatically assumed that Luca Digne would be first choice left back, especially given the caps he's got for France. I think it was it World Cup 2018. He was quite prominent in that squad, wasn't he? I think. But yeah, I mean, two good options for Villa. And to be fair, I think we take either of them, wouldn't we, Pete, at this moment?
Yeah. Well, I would say that's something that we're certainly looking at into the summer, and I know we've talked about it on many of our shows, looking at that specialist coming in the summer. So it's something to consider, and ultimately, what they offer you guys at Villa at the moment is what we want in our team: someone that can get up and down, someone that's got that delivery, set piece ability, and can contribute to the overlap of the left-hand side. You may well see it on Saturday that Byrne doesn't tend to get forward as much. He is more of a defensive-minded and very good at it, by the way, full-back. But if we're going to potentially play Champions League football, we need someone that can do a bit of both, and that's going to be our next step. But yeah, I think it's definitely something that we're looking at in terms of what you've got, and you've got two players that ultimately are doing that at the moment, which is a good thing to have, particularly if you're aiming for European football. But again, we're at that point where I can see that there's lots of questions in the chat. So I don't know if there's a couple of questions we want to throw to these guys. I say a couple of questions. It's like 25 in there already. So I don't know if you want to shoot through some questions for the boys, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, sorry, go on, Pete.
I was going to say, do you want to start just by saying a huge thanks to Jordy Mick with his £2 contribution. He said 100% believe we will make the Champions League. Look, I think me and Chris are inclined to agree with you on that one. That's for sure. And a huge thank you to the Lesonator, new member to the channel. Welcome to the channel. I'm not sure if Jordan Mick had something involved in that, or whether it was something to do with Drew. I saw something going off. Me and Chris saw something going off in the chat. So just confirm whether it was
No, you're all right, mate.
I don't know where you want to start with some of these questions. Some great ones.
No, there's some belter ones, isn't there? Let's start from the top. So Derek Platten asks, Villains, be honest. What did you honestly think at the time of Emily's appointment?
Delighted I was. Delighted. Yeah. The managers we were linked with, there was kind of that whole we're going to get Pochettino, are we? And there was a few people out there, but I think with his pedigree, I think we were all a little bit based on what the narrative was around his time at Arsenal. Although the more I've looked into that, the more actually you can realise I think he's got a better points per game than Arteta and Wenger in his first 50 games as Arsenal manager. And up until this season, I think he'll have the best. His time at Arsenal was the best points they would have got in a season. But I just think the fact he's won 4 Europa Leagues, and so taking teams that are probably seen as slightly unfashionable, which, as much as it pains me to say, maybe Villa are, compared to, some of the big Manchester teams or London teams, then, and he's taken, to take Sevilla to 3 Europa Leagues, to take Villarreal, who'd never really done anything, really, to win the Europa League, Champions League semi-final, and he's obviously clearly got, a good reputation. He's seemingly a great bloke. He's got a style of football. So I was really, really pleased to get someone of his ilk. And I think it said a lot about where our owners wanted to take us, the fact that they got someone of his pedigree.
Definitely.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I was a little bit disappointed that we didn't get someone like Pochettino over the line. But it feels like we shooted for the stars, and we went for the moon and we landed in the stars, should I say? And I mean, it's the appointment speaks for itself. His European pedigree spoke for itself, and I was delighted, and I still am delighted, and hopefully that continues for a very, very long time.
Fair play.
Tom Dixon asked you both, maybe it's too early to say, but is Unai Emery the best manager you've had at Villa?
I'd say in my lifetime, or since I've properly been watching Villa. I mean, I'm only 21, so I've not been.
He's a baby.
Yeah, I know, exactly. Best I had was Martin O'Neill before this.
I was going to say, Martin O'Neill, John Carew, and he's still
absolutely talking about my childhood there, Pete. So yes, certainly in my lifetime, and I mean the results, like I say, speaking for themselves. So I don't know whether Kevin will maybe say someone a bit different.
I think it's early days, obviously. He's only been here since November. The signs so far are amazing. I think, look, I remember slightly further back, going back to sort of the 1920s jokes we had. No, we had Big Ron in the 90s. Brian, we had a bit of success with Brian Little. We have won the European Cup, with albeit our manager left at quarterfinal stage. So we had a caretaker manager for that. But Ron Saunders was a great manager for us. But I think in terms of pure ability as a coach, I think a lot of Villa fans would say this is probably the best level of coach we've brought into the club in terms of Emery. Yeah, I think the profile and his standing in the game. I just think his ability, how meticulous he is. He's famed for lengthy meetings and in-depth analysis and just having an unbelievable work rate. So yeah, I think hopefully time will tell that he is definitely irrefutably the best we've had.
Well, Pete, I know you love it. You love a segue, and I think this question will segue us nicely into the next section. Michael Pomar asks Billy and Kevin, do you expect to be on the front foot for this game, considering you're at home, or do you expect a counter-attacking style?
The way we play, this is one worry I've got against Newcastle. You press really well, don't you? Yeah,
we do. We do. Well, we do under the Howe.
Yeah, and we play out from the back. We're getting better at it, but I mean, particularly against Leicester, for example. I mean, I think it was 3 mistakes against Leicester that cost us, all from the press. So I'm a bit worried about that. Normally, we invite teams to come at us, and then we break the press and then go for it. There's obviously more onus on us at home to do it, but I expect Newcastle to go for it for a bit. So I actually think I don't know really. I don't think we'll be on the front foot. I think it'll be. I think it'll probably be a bit more like a basketball game, in my opinion. I think you'll be going for seizing the opportunity to try and cement your top 4 spot. And I think that'll hopefully open up some spaces. But your press, that's one of the things that's been worrying me really the most.
If you go back to Wednesday against West Ham, when Murphy nicks the ball off Aguerd and straight after half time and gives Wilson with a goal, that's what we're really, really good at. Chris, you'll probably, I know you'll agree with that, is that our press, and it's consistent. I've said it to every kind of fan that's come on away days in the last number of weeks, and some of them don't necessarily believe it, but then they see it in the games and they go, okay, fair enough. It's not just periodic. It's not just 10 minutes off, 10 minutes on. It's for 90 minutes that we'll press constantly.
It's in packs as well, isn't it, Pete? It's in packs.
100%. 2, 3, 4 men pressing the ball high, and it's for 90 minutes. There's a reason why we're one of the fittest teams in the Premier League, if not the fittest team in the Premier League, because we just continue to do it. So the fact that you're saying that, Kev, fills me with a little bit more with confidence that we can potentially create a little bit of madness in that back line. And someone asked me the question earlier on in the show, I haven't answered it yet, but about Tyrone Mings, and he does gift you a chance. I don't know if you'd agree with that. I know Billy's a big fan. I know Billy sticks up for Mings, but I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second. So, that kind of works quite nicely. As you said, Chris, and we've segued quite nicely tonight. We've had a couple of questions, but look, I think it's about time to kind of get into the game and talk about that in a little bit of detail. And look, one way we always do this is by looking at some stats.
Evening, lads.
Like magic, he appears. Welcome, Keith, to the channel. 00 Stato, Splinter, Dr. Doom. There's many a names he's been given.
Blofeld.
Sorry?
Dr. No, Blofeld. Just keep on adding Bond villains to it, you know.
All the Bond villains you can think of. People put them in the chat. All the Bond villains you can think of. They are Keith's nicknames. But welcome in, as always, Keith. And look, as we build to another massive game, probably one of the biggest in recent games. What stats you got for us this week?
Loads of stats for this one. Some head-to-head, some figures on the players, manager stats, and some general stats. First of all, the head-to-head, the overall record in the Premier League since 93-94 against Aston Villa in the Premier League. Newcastle have played them 51 times, have a slight advantage with 24 wins against Villa, 16 draws and 11 defeats. Although the record at Villa Park is much better than the record at St. James's. I believe in St. James's, Villa have only won twice against Newcastle. The record at Villa Park against Aston Villa, played 25, 9 wins, 8 draws and 8 defeats. So almost right down the middle, almost there in terms of the points. The point of the stats there. Newcastle have got a better offensive record in this fixture, 71 goals compared to 47 goals for Aston Villa. Newcastle have also got a better defensive record as well against Villa in this fixture, 19 clean sheets to 13 for Aston Villa. Moving on to the players, Callum Wilson, 3 goals in 8 games against Aston Villa. Wanted to focus a little bit about Alexander Isak as well. He scored in Newcastle's past 3 away matches. He scored 4 goals in total in those games. Only Peter Beardsley has scored in 4 consecutive away appearances in the Premier League for Newcastle. And that was in December 93 in the 93-94 season, a season in which Newcastle finished 3rd. fingers crossed there's another Roman here and Alexander Isak nets again on Saturday. Ollie Watkins, I wanted to speak about Ollie Watkins because he's scored 9 and he's passed 11 appearances and 9 goals against 12 Premier League games, different Premier League games this season overall. Only 3 other players for Aston Villa also have matched that or gone a bit better for Aston Villa in the Premier League. Christian Benteke, that was in 2012-13 in 15 games. Juan Pablo Angel, he did that in 13 games. There's a blast for the past, Peter. Pete, we all remember him playing in the MLS as well, but New York as well. In 2003-2004, Juan Pablo Angel set that record. Dwight York as well, legend of the Premier League. He did that twice as well. 96-97, he got in 13 games, and in 95-96 in 14 games, had scored in more games. But Ollie Watkins, he's hit a vein of form here for Aston Villa this season, certainly flourishing under the new manager, Unai Emery. And moving on to the managers, Eddie Howe, his managerial record against Aston Villa, he's managed 7 games. Again, weighted with his Bournemouth days. He's won 4, he's drawn 3, and he's lost. He's drawn 0 and he's lost 3. Unai Emery, he's got an undefeated record against Newcastle. He's managed 3 games and he's won all 3 when he was Arsenal manager. Few general stats to round off here. Newcastle's 1-0 win against Aston Villa last season in February, and their 4-0 win in October were their only wins against Aston Villa in 7 games, 2 wins, 2 draws and 3 defeats. Newcastle as well are looking for their first Premier League double against Aston Villa since the 2013-14 season, when they were managed by Alan Pardew, and when they won 1-0 at St James's Park and won 2-1 away to Aston Villa at Villa Park. However, Newcastle haven't won a game in their last 6 games at Villa Park. They've played 6, they've won none, they've drawn 3, and they've lost 3. And that rounds off the stats for tonight.
Excellent stats as always, Keith. Always a pleasure to have you on to throw those stats this way. Some stats that are quite down the middle actually, which tells you the battle that's been whenever we played Villa over the years, and the thoughts of Dwight York and Juan Pablo Angel. Billy wasn't even alive, I don't think, to even see some of these players. He's only 21. So
I remember Juan Pablo.
vividly remember.
Very vivid.
Oh my God. We're all old, guys. We're all old. Billy's just living in a young man's world. But great stats as always, Keith, and brilliant to kind of throw them this way. And again, we always say stats are there to be broken in one way or another. One other stat, actually, and I think Daz put it in our loaded chat earlier on today, that's been doing the rounds. And actually, we've got Miggy Almiron that's on 11 goals. We've got Callum Wilson on 10, but we've also got Alexander Isak on 8. And if Alexander Isak gets 2 more goals between now and the end of the season, it'll be the first time ever, I think, in the Premier League history that would have had 3 players double figures in a season. So that I don't know if you're aware of that, Keith. Daz wanted me to bring that your way tonight because he wasn't sure if you were aware of that, but that's a really, really interesting stat.
Absolutely. You had Shearer, you had De Shearer, and you had Shearer and you had Ferdinand back in 97, 98. 96, 97. But I think as well, I'm just trying to think of the early 2000s with Sir Bobby Robson and, back then, because I can remember there were seasons when Robert hit a good patch and Solano hit a good patch. And I think they were sort of like in the sort of 12, 13 mark, as well as obviously Shearer at the same time. So I'm thinking maybe 2002, 2003. maybe. But no, certainly the last time I think we had players who were sort of over the 10 mark was maybe Rondon and Perez, 12 and 13. And that was around about 19, 20 in Rafa's last season.
It was Rafa's last season. Yeah. I think Rondon and Perez had a massive purple patch to the back end of the season. And was scoring goals.
You always used to get hot from sort of like January, February to the end of the season, didn't he?
That was how Rafa built his teams. He built his teams to be a slow burner over the course of the season. So the back end of the season, they would kick into top form. So yeah, going to be an interesting one. And look, let's look at the game now. And we always throw up the tactics board. And boys, I didn't kind of get your predictions as such. Hope you can see that on the screen. But I've gone with pretty much the team that you guys had against Forest at the weekend. And the only change I've made is because Leon Bailey did go off after 28 minutes with a hamstring complaint. So I assume, correct me if I'm wrong, boys, Billy and Kev, that he's not likely to play. So I've changed him with Traore, who come in against Leicester and scored. He did the same again. Our ex-Newcastle player Shelby gave you the gift of the gods with a pass in the box that he scored from on Saturday as well. Does that team look about right in the setup of the team? Does that look about right?
I'd say that's bang on, mate, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I think the personnel, I mean, there might be slight tweaks in terms of, the formation, whatever, but I think the personnel will be absolutely like that, yeah.
I've put Kamara on the bench. Is he still injured at the moment?
Yeah, he's still out. Yeah, I don't think.
Unfortunately, so.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other player that I didn't mention as well. Obviously, it gone with Young as right back. Matty Cash, is he still injured?
Yeah.
Right.
Still out as well.
Because
I think Cash, Kamara, maybe Coutinho are all maybe another couple of weeks away, they've said. So I think, we'll get an update, obviously, in the presser this week, but I don't expect them to be back at all for this game against you guys.
Okay, so that's the team that's kind of in place right now with regards to Villa. We always come to Villa first. From your perspective, guys, Kevin, we'll start with you. Looking at your team, looking at the way we've set up with Newcastle, this is my opinion. We'll get Chris and Keith's opinion on the potential lineup of Newcastle. But the formation is set. Where do you see Villa doing the business on Saturday potentially, and where do you think Villa will kind of cause problems for Newcastle?
I mean, it's a good question, really. I think it does depend how well we can break your press. That'd be. I think we can do that. Moreno's had a lot of joy linking up. He's linked up at times really well with Ramsey, so maybe Ramsey might be on the other side potentially. And Watkins as well. They've seemed to sort of come out really well and be. We've had a lot of fast starts actually at Villa Park. Other than the last game, a lot of teams we've beaten is because we've scored quite early on. Yeah. So usually you mentioned obviously Young there. Young is more of the sitter in terms of the fullbacks, and Moreno's the one bombing on. We've also had a lot of joy in games recently with with Louise and Kamara, or McGinn's been in great form lately as well. So I think that midfield battle is going to be absolutely key. Whether it's going to be Louise and McGinn coming out on top, or whether it will be Willock, Longstaff and Bruno. So that's and I think Watkins right now, the form he's in, if he gets half a chance, he's feeling really confident. He missed quite an easy chance in the last game, and it didn't seem to faze him again. And when he an audacious chip at the end to sort of put the seal on the Forest win. So that's what I would think anyway.
Billy, I'll come to you from your perspective. Kev's just talked about the midfield being a bit of a battle there. Obviously, 2 against 3 in that middle of the park. Is that potentially a concern for you? Because even when teams match up against us, it is normally a battle that we do win. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, your midfield just works fantastically together. It's a fantastic midfield, and I think a lot of the time when we're defending anyway, we'll probably see Ramsey drop into midfield or maybe drop into the back line, and I think it's just going to be really tight and compact. That's one thing that since Emery's come in, we've just been really tight and compact defensively. Again, like the stats that we mentioned earlier, we've only conceded one in-play goal in the past 7. So, defensively we're all right. And when you're pressing and attacking us, for us off the ball, I'm struggling here. For us off the ball, I think it'll either be Ramsey will join the midfield, kind of make a midfield 3. When Deer might drop back into the defence.
Yeah.
It's since Emery's come in, it's been a little bit. It's hard to predict these things because Emery's just a master tactician. You don't really know what to kind of expect with him, or certainly myself as a fan. I'm obviously not the tactical mastermind he is, so I don't really know how we're going to combat this. I can only speak on past experiences. And either Ramsey dropping into the midfield to make it a level playing field, 3v3, or Ramsey might drop into defence and just keep a tight, compact line. But yeah, when we've got the ball, like Kevin said, it's going to be a case of trying to break your press and getting Buendia in behind in spaces, McGinn as well in behind in spaces, and Ramsey as well, of course. And hopefully one of your midfielders can pass the ball to Traore for a first-time finish for the 3rd game in a row.
I bloody well hope. We've already given gifts away recently. We should have had a couple more clean sheets than we did have. We had the Forest game where Botman unfortunately passed the ball straight to Dennis and he scored for Forest. We had there was another game. It's gone beyond me now. Well, it was Wolves where Trippier gifted the equaliser at St James's Park, where he tried to clear the ball but cleared it straight into his path and he tapped it into an empty net. So,
another one like that. Fantastic.
Yeah, I think that Chris, Keith, you'll probably agree with this. We've had our fill of gifting teams goals now for the season. I don't think it's going to happen again, but I have to give a shout out to PDK because he did tag me in something earlier on today in the build up to away days, and he sent me some images. I've not got them to put on the screen right now, but what it was, he was like, basically, make sure you get them, make sure you get their formation right tonight. A 6-2-2, and he's given me 4 different images. One from the Chelsea game, 2 from the Chelsea game, and 2 from the Bournemouth game, and it has your team literally set up like this. It's kind of like a 6 in here, and then a 2, and then a 2 up front. And would you say you're a defensively minded team in terms of you kind of sit back and wait for teams to break you down? Because looking from the images here, and bearing in mind it is only 2 games, it does look like you know at times when you're off the ball that you literally sit in how I've just put it on the screen as a kind of a 6-2-2, and you just say, look, break us down. Would that be right in saying, or would you say that was quite harsh?
I think that's quite harsh personally. I think every team, when defending, when you've got the lead and teams are pressing you, of course you're going to drop back and be a bit more defensively stable at times. And yeah, we do it quite often because we've taken the lead, as Kevin said early on in games, and we've taken the lead quite often. I mean, we've scored in every single one of Emery's games since he's come in.
Yeah.
So of course, at times we're going to be defensively strong, and there's going to be quite a few of us sat back. But I think you'll be quite surprised because seeing those pictures, people just assume that it's 6-2-2. That's our formation. That's just how we play, kind of thing. We just sit back and defend. That's not the case at all.
Nah, that's fair enough. And I've had a few people on here say, why is Pope playing for Villa? I do apologise. I will certainly change that. Hope you guys and girls feel better now. That's been changed. But no, I had to ask the question because to be fair, from the images, it does look a certain way from what PDK, and PDK is a big follower of the channel. Great guy. So I had to kind of put that out there and ask you guys the question because again, you watch Villa a lot more than we do. So it was a great kind of opinion from that perspective. Right, boys. Chris, come to you first.
Mm-hmm.
This is the team that I would play against Aston Villa. As you can see, the back five doesn't really change here. We know the ASM is out, and we'll come into that in a second in terms of the length of time. We don't believe he's going to be fit for the game on Saturday, more likely to be Spurs next weekend. So we've gone for the tried and trusted that we went with Brentford. Joe Linton on the left, Willock in the middle, Isak on top. Again, this is what I've gone for, and I believe Murphy deserves, although he did play great against Brentford, and we brought off at half time, I think he deserves to have another crack at the cherry and start again. But do you have a different opinion on that, Chris? Would you change anything? What are your thoughts about how Newcastle will line up on Saturday?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I put in the chat earlier, Pete, in our WhatsApp group, I said that I thought that Gordon would start on the left and Joe Linton would be in the middle, probably in place of Willock. That's not to say it will happen, but that's I feel like, especially after what happened with Anthony Gordon in the Brentford game, I feel like Eddie Howe could unleash him and just go, right, we'll go and show what you can do then, kind of thing. However, you know, as you know, you've put there, I don't, I'm not opposed to that. My only thing, which I say most weeks, is I much prefer Joe Linton in the middle. Whether or not Eddie Howe sees it like that, I don't know. I thought you made a really good point before, Pete, when you were talking about Villa's two in the middle. So that's going to be a really interesting battle, and whether David Luiz and John McGinn can, you know, come up against our middle three. That's always a big it's a big ask, isn't it? It's a big ask for teams who play with three in the middle, let alone teams who play with two in the middle. Interesting as well when you know, the lads were saying that Matty Cash is out, because that is going to be a good battle, whoever plays there, whether it's Gordon, whether it's Joe Linton. That's going to be a big. That's going to be an interesting test, I think, for Ashley Young, who's not getting any younger. I think, is Ashley Young 38? Am I right in saying that?
I think he's not
38.
Nearly 38, I think.
Yeah. So, you know, he's a good player, Ashley Young, and over the years, you know, he's been a really good servant for both Villa and Man United. But yeah, that'll be a big test for me. I hope Isak starts. Because I think this game will really suit Isak, especially with that high press. Callum Wilson's come back into form, which has been, you know, really pleasing to see. What I would say, Pete, just as maybe a curveball, is there a possibility that we see that 4-2-3-1 against Villa, or do you think we will still go with our tried and tested 4-3-3? I'm only asking that obviously because of that second half performance against Brentford.
It's an interesting conversation. It's almost kind of this, isn't it?
Yeah.
And Longstaff was subbed off at half time, so it's almost you're almost looking at this type of formation. I personally, and I'm adamant on this, I don't believe we'll start this way. I think this is what a lot of Newcastle fans dream of, what they would want. They would want Wilson and Isak to start together. But what we would need in order for that to happen, I think we might see that next season. But what we'd need is someone on the bench of a Wilson or Isak quality. And this is going to be interesting in our transfer window. Do we go out and get a third striker? Do we go out and get a Marcus Thuram to come in and play as a third fiddle to these boys? And we say, right, okay, we're going to play with effectively two strikers, either like this or like this. And we've got then a powerhouse, someone of quality to come on and replace one of these two boys later on in the game. At this moment in time, I personally wouldn't. And the reason why is because what's been so effective with Newcastle United at the moment is the ability to bring players off the bench of equal quality and to keep the levels up when we need it. So, for example, at half-time, Longstaff comes off, Murphy comes off. But what you get is Gordon comes on, Wilson comes on for these, and you've got the formation that I've just had up a second ago that you mentioned, Chris, and we still had the quality that come off the bench. It was either equal or better and we just blitzed. We blitzed in about 15 minutes. We blitzed Brentford and won the game in that period of time. We need that off the bench. I want to be able to look at the bench, and Eddie Howe wants to be able to look at the bench. You, Keith, will want to be able to look at the bench and go, right, who can change the game for us? Willett can change the game. Wilson can change the game. He's hungry. He's a tiger at the moment. He wants to score goals. He wants to prove himself. You've got Ellie Anderson that did it against Forest. Okay, you want that. There's lots of talk. He's back in full training now. We thought it'd be 6 weeks. It's not. He's back in full training and talk that he's going to be available. Our top scorer, Miguel Almiron. Can he come off the bench and affect the game? He did it against Wolves in his last game before he got injured. That's what you want. You want players that can come off the bench and make a difference. So that's why I wouldn't play it. To be fair, there's a lad called Segs in our Georges Down South chat that's, I think it's Segs. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think he's been an advocate for that, almost playing our strongest players all at once. And I've kind of said, I think we'd all love that, but we then ruin Watson, then an option off the bench at 60 minutes.
Yeah.
They're tired. What have we got to look for as an addition to come off the bench? And that's why I wouldn't quite do that as such. But Keith, I'll get your thoughts on that. Would you change anything? Look, we put Gordon in there, or Chris has put the question out there. Would you put Gordon in there, or would you stick with what was kind of the formation and the lineup against Brentford?
It's an interesting idea, certainly putting Gordon in, to try and manage the situation, sort of saying, okay, I'm going to give you a chance, sort of go on out there and show us what you can do. But I still like the industry of Willock. I think Willock gives you that bit more, pushing forward from the midfield. He's just, again, he's coming good again. I'm just going out there, one of my favourites really of the last few years, really, Willock. So I just think he gives you that bit more. I still think of Gordon as proven himself. I like the industry. I like what he's doing, but at the minute I would pick Willock over Gordon. I also like the idea as well of what you were saying there as well about Almiron. Coming back from the injury, coming on as a sub if we need to change it. I wouldn't start with him, not yet. I don't think he's ready, but I don't think there's any harm in the second half. If you need to, if you've got a lead in a game and you want to add to that lead, you need some fresh legs in the game later on, bring on Almiron.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like a like for like there. Almiron for Murphy later on in the game, maybe a Willock or a Joe Linton, probably a Willock. He normally gives everything for 60, 70 minutes, and then we bring him off. And then bringing on a Gordon to play on the left. You bring Joe Linton into here, and you play that formation late on. So you still got strength in numbers and ability, but you've got still the work rate. We've already seen from Gordon, he runs all day, but so does Almiron. Almiron's like a Duracell battery. He just doesn't stop. He's 90, 100 miles an hour for 90 plus minutes. So you know what you're going to get later on in the game from that. So you've got those options and that quality there. I'm going to flip it back really quickly before we move on to the next section. As we come towards the end of the show, with regards to Villa. So your boy is back, Diego Carlos. And we know him very well because we were linked with him. I think we had 2 bids rejected, just over a year ago, in our first January transfer window with the new ownership. And you guys picked him up in the summer. You got the deal done. Unfortunately, he had I think it was an Achilles injury quite early on in his career at Villa, and he's only just kind of back in playing. And I know he's been on the bench a few times recently. Is there a reason why he's not starting? Because he's come with a lot of pedigree in an experienced defender. What's the reason why he's not started, and could he potentially come in on Saturday?
I'm not sure that potential we'll even see him this season. The level of fitness that he's got, I don't think Villa fans truly know. I think he came back quicker than most do. He ruptured his Achilles. Yeah. That's the kind of injury that can end careers. Even in this day and age of the marvels of modern medicine. And clearly, an injury like that, how's he going to respond in terms of how explosive he'll be, his ability to compete, with Premier League level forwards. That was the second game we had him for. We had the absolute horror show of losing away at Bournemouth when Gerrard changed most of the team, and then second game, home game against Everton, I think it was. Right at the end of it, we were winning, and then he's gone. So I don't expect him to come back in. I think, from what I've heard, Emery's been putting him in the squads because, we're light on players. That's why we often have two goalies in the bench. Right. And that's why our bench, I don't think, is really anywhere near comparable to Newcastle's bench. So that could, again, be a key factor if, the game's a bit of a, chess match with 30 minutes left. Who can affect it? But I think Carlos has largely been in there because of just to kind of give him a bit of a boost, really. So I don't really expect him to come in. I think actually, if there's a defensive injury, I expect Callum Chambers will be the one that come on.
Interesting. Den Donker. What for me, I'm outside looking in now. He doesn't seem to be a success, or has been a success at Villa. Do you see him being there long term going into next season?
I think he's a decent squad player. I don't see him starting anytime soon. I don't think he's good enough to be a starter anytime soon. And I think the main thing that he's done at Villa since joining is probably cost us the game against Stevenage. Aside from that, he hasn't really done an awful lot, and that might be slightly harsh on him. He's come in a couple of times and off the bench. He's come in a couple of times and done okay. He's not often put a foot wrong. But yeah, I don't see him certainly being a starter. He's not going to be a starter anytime soon, especially once Kamara's back as well, unless we get another injury to McGinn or Louise. Whether he'll stay past the summer, I'm not 100% sure. Mainly for that reason, mainly because he's a squad player. He may want to go and get himself some minutes. He's a decent enough player for a bottom half of the table team. So if Forest stay up, for example, if Everton stay up, there's a lot of teams in that bottom 9 that any of them could drop. I think he'd do well at one of them, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. Definitely. Again, it's going to be intriguing, particularly if the formation sets up the way it is here. Will there be an overload with these boys getting forward here in these wide areas? So it's kind of 4-on-4, or will we see kind of revert back to setting up against each other in a similar fashion? That Ramsey comes in here, McGinn and Louise up against Longstaff and Bruno. It's going to be interesting to see how it all kind of works out, really. And can we affect the press? If you boys are here with the ball, as we've seen before, we will step up and we'll have Joe Linton that will come into this area here, and we will try and block it off, and we'll expect then these boys to block off the any balls in and behind. These boys will push up, and this is how it will look on the press. You will probably see this numerous times within the game, and we will just press and work and try and nick the ball as high up in the pitch. And I'm intrigued to see how I always am in every game that we play against every opposition about how teams deal with that press, because the way we set up it is very, very difficult to manage. So it'll be interesting to see. But what you have got is a World Cup winning goalkeeper, a very good goalkeeper. Just a quick one from you boys. You think you'll keep him in the summer? There's been links of him moving elsewhere.
I'm hopeful of it, to be honest with you. I think as well, if we get Europe, I think he will definitely stay. He said several times as well that he wants to beat Mark Bosnich's clean sheet record, and he wants to win a trophy with us, and he wants to play in Europe with us. So if we can get into Europe, then I'm very hopeful that he will stay. I think he will stay. If we don't get Europe, then I'm still hopeful of it, to be honest with you, because of Unai Emery, because of his stature, because he's a competition. He's good at winning cups, isn't he? and the trajectory that Villa have been on since Unai coming in, I think that will keep him at the club as well. He can see the direction that we're going in. Saying that, if he was to leave, I can't begrudge him because he's a top goalkeeper and he deserves to be playing Champions League football.
Same view for you, Kev?
Yeah, look, Martinez, for Villa fans, I think, there was around about a time with the World Cup, some of his antics when, and he'd been a little bit, not quite the level of form at the start of the season. I think our bad start under Gerrard certainly wasn't helped by him not being at his best, but post-World Cup, he's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, I think he's been as good as he's been for us, really, any of his time with us. And I know every fan likes to believe that every player absolutely loves their club until they end up leaving. We've had a few famous ones of those over the years of fans, of players basically saying, professing their love for us, and then all of a sudden, leaving a few weeks later. Fabian Delph being one. But Martinez, I think, absolutely loves it. He's said so many times how his career has gone through the roof since he's come to Villa. Not only did he establish himself in the Argentinian team, but he's obviously won the World Cup and the Finalissima. So he's now won something of as good as you can get in the game. And he's still a decent age. So I think he can still give Villa a year or two, particularly with the trajectory of the club right now. I would be surprised. If he did leave, it would be very much on our terms. I think we'd get a really good fee for him. And I think we could... The one criticism I've got of Martinez, I know he's been better lately, is I think Emery would maybe like someone ideally who's a bit better with the ball at their feet, the kind of player he wants in goal. The Martinez has definitely improved at that, but I don't think it's probably his biggest strength. So I think if he did leave, it would be massively on our terms.
No, interesting. We'll see how that one unfolds. He has been a very, very good keeper for you guys, and certainly for Argentina winning the World Cup. And that's definitely one to watch. But let's face it, if you get European football and he does go, there'll be adequate replacements out there that I think you'll get. So I'm not worried about that. Boys, Chris, Keith, let's go to some questions. And there's a question I want to ask you two before, Chris, you scour the starred questions that are up and running. We have to talk about this. Lots of people in the chat have been talking about it all evening. But John Norton said, is ASM injured? Press said he is. Then ASM posts a video sprinting. Bring back the zebra. And then just to add to that, no, don't bring back the zebra. But Mark Todd said, another Saint-Maximin injury, a Maverick at getting injured, taking weeks to get back to best. Playing 2 or 3 decent games, then repeats injured again. Time to sell. Chris, your thoughts on the Alan Saint-Maximin situation? Our friend of the channel, Jordan Cronin, put the piece out today that he could be out for 6 weeks, and then literally within the hour of the article coming out, Saint-Maximin on Instagram puts a video of him sprinting down the Monaco pier, he literally just under a week after getting the injury. What's your thoughts on all of this?
Do you know what, Pete? I don't even know what to think about it. I'll be honest. Like it always baffles me. We were talking about this earlier on today, weren't we? Saying, I understand that players, want to, if they're injured, they want to go elsewhere and get fit and stuff like that. If he's not injured, as the Instagram post suggests, I would question why. Oh,
sorry, God.
No, it's all right. I would, if he's not injured and he's gone elsewhere. For me, I don't know. I know sometimes people make exceptions for players or circumstances and personal circumstances. I totally get that, but for me, if I was another player within that squad and I kept seeing someone swanning off, going somewhere else to go and train, and they're perfectly fine, they're fit and well, I'd kind of be saying, well, I wouldn't mind going to Monaco, or I wouldn't mind going to America, or I wouldn't mind, but I'm in here every day training with the rest of the lads, and I don't know. I mean, we Eddie Howe. Was it Eddie Howe who revealed that Saint-Maximin was injured, or did we just see the picture of Saint-Maximin getting treatments?
In his presser, in his presser after the West Ham game, he mentioned that or it might have been in the it was a presser after the West Ham game because it was also the preview to the Brentford game, and he mentioned that he picked up something and that he might be out for a couple of weeks. That's what Howe said initially.
Yeah. Do you know what? I don't really know what to say on it. If I'm honest, I really don't, because I'm like he's got to be one of the most frustrating players we've ever had. Like on his day, he's absolutely brilliant. You know, is he a credit to the team? Yeah. When he's on form, he's a fantastic player. But I must admit, I do get tired at times of debating or talking about what Saint-Maximin's up to. And like, you know, it gets to the point for me where you start going, is he really worth it? And I know that sounds really harsh to say, but it always feels like there's a bit of a circus around Saint-Maximin.
Do you think Chris and Pete and guys, do you think he does it for attention almost? Like, it seems to be like a repeated pattern. Like, he sort of gets himself into a vein of form as well. Like, Man United, you know, the game around that and the game before, just like he did last summer, the Man City game at St. James's, and then the Wolves game, he saves it in the Wolves game. Yeah. And I think he was legitimately injured after that Wolves game because he was struggling at the end. But it's the Instagram posts, as you say, it's the trips away and it's the efforts, and it can become a bit tiresome and wearisome as well.
Yeah.
And you know what? I like the player. You know, when he's on form, he can be brilliant. He does things that frustrate you on and off the pitch, but I've enjoyed watching ASM play over the last 3-4 seasons. But I think it will probably come to a point, and you know, the ownership that patience might just wear thin and might just say, look, this is his level. He's only going to get here. Where we're going in the Champions League or Europa League, we need to go further, and need to think next level here. And he might just be making the decision for them.
Incredibly talented player, Keith. I agree with you. Incredibly talented player. And on his day, you know, I often say to my boys, like, in terms of dribbling, like, I don't think if you asked most Premier League defenders who do you not want to play against on top form, running at you at pace, they'd say Saint-Maximin. Like, he can be absolutely brilliant, but the trouble is, you see this 2 or 3 times a season, but then you get 3 or 4 stories every season of, oh, he's gone missing, or he's gone here, or he's doing this, or he's doing that. And if he's allowed to do it, that's fine. You know, there's no problem. But will Eddie Howe and the team be looking at it and going, he wants to go again? Are we going to let him? Yeah, go on, let him go. There's certain players who just fall under the radar all the time. You never hear of other players within it, like Bruno. You never hear of them.
It's almost as well, Pete, sorry, that it's almost getting to a point where we would have really missed them over previous seasons. Like, I'm thinking of the Steve Bruce days where he went and you'd pine for him to be back in the team and that. Yeah. But now it's a case of, we've got Gordon, we've got, as you say, we've got Willock, and we've got the other side, we've got we've got Almiron, and we've got Murphy, who's really stepping up to the plate, probably the player who's stepped up the play the most this season. And it's almost like we're not missing him as much. Him not being in the team, it isn't hurting Newcastle as much as it had in previous years.
Yeah.
I mean, what are your thoughts on it, Pete?
I'm kind of just smiling as we're talking about this, because, like, being honest, I really don't see it as a big deal. I really don't.
Do you think the tactic becomes a thing every time, though, Pete? Like, the discussion. I mean, I'm not saying that I'm trying to, like, you know, make a big meal out of it, but the fan base as a collective always bring it up.
But I was about to say it's the fan base. Like, Billy and Ken must be listening to us thinking, what the hell are these guys going on about? But this is Newcastle United fan base. I'm sure you guys do it as well at Villa, but we have been notorious for the 30 years that I've supported this club. We have been notorious of looking at everything with a fine-tooth comb. Every news article back in the day, every newspaper article, every comment of a manager before or after the game. Now it's every tweet, every Instagram post, everything that we see, we fine-tooth comb everything, and we jump on assumptions of everything of every player. Well, this is not just at Maxwell, by the way. This is every single player of every situation. And I really don't see a big deal. Like I put it in the chat earlier, Chris, didn't I? When you were mentioning about Saint-Maximin, and I kind of threw out there. I said, well, Callum Wilson, when he's injured, he goes back to Bournemouth. When Miguel Almiron is injured, he goes back to Paraguay.
I think Richie the other year as well, didn't he? Went away. So there is that element of it as well. Are we maybe looking into it a bit too much?
When it was really, really interesting is that when we went to Dubai during the international break, Alan Saint-Maximin went to Dubai, but went to a different place to work on his fitness for a couple of days, even though the players were given a break. Bruno Guimaraes went to the Maldives. Joe Linton went back to Brazil. Nobody said a word about those two. But because Maxi worked with the rest of the squad in Dubai, there were question marks about him. Like, why is he not in the same place that everyone else is at? Blah, 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 blah. And it's like, hold on. Bruno's gone to the Maldives. He's not even training. The guy's chilling. He's sipping pina coladas, like, enjoying his time. Joe Linton, okay, his wife's due a baby. No problem. He's gone back to Brazil. He's gone back home. Nobody says a word. It's like with Saint-Maximin, there is a heightened opinion on him. And look, there are some players that like to build their brand with the Helios stuff. With his brand, he puts more stuff out there than any other player because he has a brand and he wants to build that, and that's up to him. But what you can't question is when he puts on that shirt, he gives everything for the club. And you've just got to go back to the Man United game when he sets up the goal for Willock, and they both stood there. And I made this a point on our preview when they both stood there, and he's kissing the badge and he's pointing to the badge and he's telling the Gallagher how much he cares for this club. You cannot discount that. The trips to Monaco, the trips to France, the trips to wherever when he's doing his injuries, fair enough. But you cannot question his commitment to this club.
There's one game, right? And if it might be in a cup because, it looks like it'll never happen with a promotion. But if there's one game I'd love to see him in, just because he's out, the winded them up, is a game against Sunderland. Like, can you remember the other year when he did the sort of he put that clip up online, and it was from like the weekend's Grammys appearance or something like that, where he's lost in a room or something. Yeah. It just wound them up. Even if Newcastle were to draw them in a cup, like a League Cup or an FA Cup, and ASM was still and he played, I would just love that just to see. Yeah, but it's theatrics because he would know which buttons to press.
Exactly, and it could well be that he's showing people that he's fighting to get back fit. He might be showing people that he's going all out to get back on the pitch because he wants to get back on the pitch for Newcastle. But a lot of fans haven't read it that way. They've just read it like he's trying to rub the club up the wrong way. We've got an article that saying that he's out for 6 weeks. He's showing something different. People have seen it as a negative, but he might be showing, actually, I'm fighting to get back in this team because I want to play for Newcastle United. We don't know. The club haven't confirmed it, by the way. I'll be honest with you. And to be fair, I had a chat with Jordan Crone earlier on today, and I said, in my opinion, if it's a grade 2 tear, and I've had a grade 2 tear in my hamstring on both legs, you cannot run in the first 2 weeks of that recovery. There is no way that you're running and sprinting like he is down the Monaco Pier if you've got a grade 2 tear. There's no way, in my opinion. So for me, I'm of the opinion I think he'll be back in the next in the next 2 weeks, under 2 weeks. I'm earmarking the Spurs game as a potential for his return, just because of what I've seen in that little clip. But that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. But look, someone said in the chat, why we talk about ASM all the time. It is a talking point. It is a talking point, and we have to talk about it because the fan base make it a talking point. And on Loaded Bag NUFC, we have to talk about that stuff. But let's sidestep that for a second. Let's fire a few questions back at the Villa guys who must be bored out of their heads talking about Alan Saint-Maximin. He's not going to play on Saturday, which is probably music to your ears. But what questions have we got, Chris, for the Villa boys?
Well, Munch has asked this question, and this is a cracking question. It'd be interesting to hear the lads' views on this. And Munch says, "I'd like to know from an opposition point of view their thoughts on the dark arts of Newcastle." Which is what we keep getting accused of, lads. If you haven't heard, I'm sure you have. Keith asked a similar question. I'll tie it in with this actually. Where's Keith's question? Because it did star that. Keith. What's your thoughts on Mark Lovinson's comments about Newcastle's time wasting on the off the ball show? He said that Newcastle are ruining football. What are your thoughts? So in general, lads, like, you know, will you be keeping an eye out for that on 12:30 on Saturday, or do you see it like we see it, as in, you know, we're not doing anything new that most other clubs will have done at some point during their time playing football, or how do you see it?
I think you could be saying the same thing to us, because Martinez is an absolute master at it. I mean, a lot of Villa fans get so frustrated about him picking up like yellow cards when he doesn't need to, but he's one of the biggest, what houses in football. Martinez is. So yeah, I mean, I've not really paid too much attention to Newcastle doing it. I did see the Lawrenson comments. I tell you what, I really started. It used to really annoy me, all this time wasting and stuff going on. And I remember we played, I think it was Watford a couple of seasons back, maybe a season or two back, and I think they beat us 1-0 at home. Dennis scored, and there were players coming on the pitch, then rolling back on the pitch and off the pitch, and everyone was going down at the littlest thing, and they just dragged it out to. By the way, those saying in the chat, it's not me with the noise in the background, by the way, just in case, because I keep seeing some of the comments coming in going, Kevin's got YouTube on, or he's got a dog. My dog's asleep, and I've got nothing else on, just to make that clear. And they ground out this 1-0 win at Villa Park, and I remember thinking, why don't we ever do that? Why don't we ever just basically gamesmanship, get our levels better at that? So from my perspective, I've not really got an opinion on Newcastle doing it, but I'll tell you what, if you get 1-0 up and then you drag it out to the end and we can't get past you, I'm sure I'll probably have a different view in it after
that. Same with me as well. I can only echo what Kev has said. You know, I've not really, I hadn't, to be honest with you, before this, hadn't really heard Mark Lawrenson's comments either. So, it's time wasting is something that happens up and down the country at every single level. It's part of the game. When it's against you, it's annoying. When it's for you, you don't really think too much of it. Like Kev said, if you score early on and drag the game out and you're doing it constantly all game, then of course I'm going to have a different opinion. But no, I think even when Martinez was doing it, I don't think it was. I think people are trying to make something of nothing, and yeah, just get on with it. To be honest.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair, lads. I think that's fair. Now, Kenzie asks a question, and this is very much the elephant in the room, and you probably know this question is going to be coming at some point. But Kenzie asks, what do the two Villa lads think of those sob on the time banners and that guy Villa Watch? Now, I don't know if you know Villa Watch, but Villa Watch is he's prime time on Twitter, and he's rubbed up a few Newcastle fans the wrong way, should we say? But firstly, what do you think of the sob on the time banners? And are you aware of Villa Watch?
I'm fully aware of Villa Watch, unfortunately, and I've got him blocked. That's all I'm going to say on it. It annoys me personally when you see Villa fans, if you want to call them that, just make these accounts to just wind up other fan bases. It's something that I really don't like, because it creates a rivalry out of nowhere. All of a sudden, anything that Villa's commented in, you get a lot of Newcastle fans commenting on. Anything Newcastle's commented in, you get a load of Villa fans commenting on. And it just creates something from nothing that is completely unnecessary. In regards to the sub on the time, I think it was just a little bit of fun that should have stayed in 2010 or whenever it was. I don't think there's any need to, personally anyway, I don't think there's any need to bear a grudge or anything like that. It was a little bit of fun. It's been, it's gone. Let that be in the past. We're two big clubs now. We're both trying to break into the top 6, top 4. break up the traditional big six. You know, we've both got rich owners, some more wealthy than others. But, you know, we're both here. We're both serious contenders for European football.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really get the need for such a rivalry and such a tense atmosphere between the two clubs, to be honest with you. Let's not come together and hold arms and all sing and dance together by any stretch of the imagination. But, you know, I think this forced rivalry that the media and things like that come up, and Twitter users, I don't think it's really necessary, to be honest with you. That's my 2 pence on it. And also, when you've got people like Gabby Agbonlahor as well, as a player, I've got great memories of him scoring against Birmingham City, last minute winners, stuff like that. But he talks a lot of rubbish on TalkSport, and I'm someone that's changed my view of him, particularly when he's saying all sorts of rubbish on TalkSport, because it's national radio and people portray what he's saying as that's every Villa fan's view.
Yeah.
Personally, anyway, I completely disagree with that. And, you know, he's tried it on with Leeds fans. He tries to wind up Leeds fans, winds them up. All of a sudden, again, you've got this little rivalry thing going on, and it just infuriates normal fans like myself that, you know, if it wasn't for them creating this drama, creating this rivalry, it's just another game against a team that's in good form. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, do you know what? It's funny you saying that, Billy, because like I still remember the time, and I must admit it hurt because obviously, you know, we played away, we got beat. I think it was a Damien Duff own goal, wasn't it? We got beat, we went down.
Yeah. But
But it's funny, isn't it? Because you're absolutely right what you're saying. Whoever made that sign, it was obviously like a bit of a last minute thing. It wasn't this, you know, the way some fans, and me included in that, you know, the way some fans act is if, like, you know, Aston Villa paid for this thousands and thousands of pound sign just to put up, and, you know, they unravelled it when Newcastle went down. When you actually take a step back and think it's probably about 3, 4, 5 lads who've just gone, oh, let's put this sign, that'll be funny. And then it's just turned, since then, it's just turned into like, oh, Newcastle hate Villa and Villa hate Newcastle. And it's funny, isn't it, how things, you know.
I would just say, to be honest, it's sort of been and went as a rivalry. It's for me, I've never really hated Villa. It's one of those where they're that far away almost. And the one thing I would say about that Villa watch guy is there not enough rivalries in the Midlands for him? Like, you know, is the Birmingham one spicy enough? Is the West Brom rivalry not spicy enough? You have to, you know, go and pick rivalries with people.
I think it's like people stay relevant, though, isn't it? I mean, the thing is with Agbonlahor, I don't mind him for the same reason. I like it if someone, like, you know, if I see a video of someone falling over, like, you know, it's just that's the entertainment factor. You haven't got Agbonlahor there for his incisive punditry. If he ever says anything which is, you know, and makes some good points, like, you know, stop clocks right twice a day, isn't it? His angle is almost like the Roy Keane angle of being the antagonizer, and that's what's getting him the attention that he's getting right now. Villa Watch, I don't really. By the way, Kev's not Villa Watch, but I've seen up comment BDK. That's not me. I don't really know too much about Villa Watch, mate. I don't know. I've not. I just look at it like this. Every fan base, any football game you go to, you're going to be given the obvious target to getting it in the opposition players. Whether you're coming up against, you know, a Craig Bellamy back in the day or a Jamie Vardy right now, whatever, you're going to get the obvious targets, right? Tyrone Mings gets it from every fan base. If he makes one mistake, it's, you know, game over for him. And you're always going to get idiots everywhere. And by the way, I thought what Billy said was absolutely brilliant. Like, you know, I totally echo his words. There's no rivalry for me. I think the only rivalry really is that we're both now trying to break into that dynasty of the traditional top 6 teams. Other than that, you know, I've got really, really fond memories of, you know, being sort of like, 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, watching that Newcastle team under Keegan, and, you know, and what you did, and the kind of the swashbuckling style, and love Bobby Robson, you know, everything about that kind of the history of the club, you know, what a fantastic stadium, what a tradition. So I just think you're always going to get antagonisers everywhere. And I think most Villa fans don't see it, just like we don't really see the Leeds one. The rivalry for me is Birmingham City. That's it. You know, I don't even see Wolves, West Brom, anyone else. It's Birmingham City for me. And I've got bigger fish to fry.
Definitely. Look, I think there was a comment in there. I've just missed it. I think it was further up, and it was from. Sorry to take this off you, Chris. 1 second.
No, go for it, mate. Go for it.
Villa 1982 said, "Why can't we break the so-called top 6? Why can't we do it together? Why can't we be the 2 teams that break?
Wouldn't that be great?
And why not throw Brighton into that? Brighton are building something really, really good there as well. Why can't they be the opposition?" Billy,
I was just going to say that now as well. Like football is not just the last 20, 30 years, is it? You know, I'm twice Billy's age. You know, but I do remember, back in the late 80s, Chelsea were nothing, Man City were nothing. You know, Chelsea had a little bit of history, not much. Man City again, a little bit, not much. You know, the last 20, 30 years, money's coming to football. But before that, you had some huge teams out there that were traditionally like great clubs: Newcastle, Aston Villa. Even teams like, Sunderland, West Brom, Forest have obviously got their history, Leeds, big clubs have got great fan bases that have done something. So just because now this top 6 has become the top 6 that it is, absolutely, why not? Look at Greece in the Euros. Look at Leicester City, like 8-9 years ago. Why can't it? It's not just about the money as well. Plenty of teams have had loads of money, and credit to Newcastle, because, I remember when QPR were the richest owners in the world, and look at them. Look at them now. Newcastle, I think Chris made his point earlier on. And I wanted to mention this. You're getting pelters for spending loads of money, apparently. But, you spent loads of money on a striker who's on loan at Forest now. So he's not like you bought Chris Wood to change the Premier League. Obviously, Matty Targett was a decent transfer fee. He's not done it. It's been a lot of those traditional players that were in the squad before that have been coached to a brilliant level. And it's the same with Aston Villa. So absolutely, why can't 2 teams like Villa and Newcastle do what was happening, 20 odd years ago and be in the top 6 when, you were knocking on the Premier League title, door for a bit of time. We did it in the first season in the Premier League, become second to Man United in 92, 93. Yeah. And for years, we were a top 6 team. And I think that's where the likes of Villa and Newcastle belong. So if we can do it together, fantastic. And I love also giving these bigger teams a bloody nose. It's brilliant. I love watching the Man Uniteds and the Chelseas get beaten. I love it. It's brilliant.
Liverpool.
Chelsea having the worst season, I think, since 1994. They're like 11th place. When Glenn Hoddle first took over, it's the worst season for Chelsea for a long, long time.
Yeah.
How much better would the Premier League be with that? Is that you've got this traditional top 6, but how good of a Premier League? I mean, let's face it. Lots of people are saying this Premier League season has been fantastic. Apart from it was a while ago. I remember on the 12th Man, Billy, you were saying you were the team in the middle that wasn't fighting for anything. You were kind of the team that was really, really.
We were 11th. That was it. We were destined for 11th forever.
Everyone below you was fighting for
11 weeks.
Yeah, everyone above you were fighting for Europe. Everyone below you were fighting for relegation. You weren't really doing anything. But how great is it that we've had a Premier League season where the relegation fight is so big, but the European fight is just as big. You're going into Chelsea in 11th spot that could mathematically still get European football, which I don't think we've ever really had a genuine contest like this where so many teams are fighting out for the top positions. And how great would that be in years to come if that became a regular occurrence? It wasn't always Chelsea, Arsenal, Tottenham, and those guys have bad seasons and still get away with it with European football. What we're proving right now, like Leicester did in 2016, although I hate that because I hate Leicester just as much as I hate Sunderland. But being from Leicester, by the way, but if we can continue to do that if those teams continue to slip up, that there's teams like ours, there's Villa, Brighton that can exploit them. Throw Brentford in there; they've had a great season too. That we can exploit that and continue to grow and develop. So, all good as far as I'm concerned. Sorry, Chris, to rant.
No, not at all, mate. Do you know what? I'm going to take this opportunity dead quick before I ask the lads a couple more questions. Big massive shout out to Antunami. Great show again, lads. Thanks all. 2-1 to the 2. And fingers crossed, Anne. Thank you very much for your donation, and very, very much appreciated. Same with John Elliott. Again, thank you very much, John. Really appreciate it, mate. Let's hope it's an open game with no time wasting. We don't want to upset twisty face Mark Levinson again. 2-1 to the tune. Villa to score first.
Chris, just before we go on they're two people in the chat that are new to the chat that we haven't really seen on a regular basis. And I have to say, there's been a few new subscribers tonight to the channel. So welcome everyone who hasn't seen the channel before, hadn't yet subscribed. We aren't quite over 100 likes yet, so click that thumbs up if you haven't already. We've got 140 plus in the chat still, so click that thumbs up if you haven't already. And if you haven't subscribed, like the likes of potentially John Elliott and Tunma Armian, you click that subscribe button. It just takes a second, but it means a massive difference to us as we push on towards 6K. So thank you all for your support so far. Sorry, Chris. Crack on, mate. Oh, he's on mute. He's on mute.
Why do I do it? Every time I go, I'm going to be good. I won't put myself on mute, and then I accidentally put myself on mute. Apologies. So we've got a couple more questions for the lads, which are really good ones, which I'd like to ask. Michael Pomar asks, Billy, Kevin, would not making Europe now be a big disappointment, or are you playing with house money right now?
For me personally, if we don't get Europe, of course it'd be disappointing considering the position that we're in, considering the teams that we've got to play. However, my main aim at the beginning of the season and since Emery came in was let's just get into the top half. Next season can be the season that we really push on and try and get into the European places, with hopefully a big summer spend as well. So yeah, I'm trying to keep my feet on the ground at the minute. I think I did a predictions thing the other day and I saw us finishing above Spurs. So
wow.
I mean, I think I put us to win most games. So yeah, I'm trying to keep my feet on the ground. But of course it will be a disappointment, like I say, considering where we are now, etc. But yeah, just the top half finish is all I've wanted, and I'll be as happy as Larry if we get that, which it looks like we will. So fingers crossed.
What about you, Kevin?
I'd be really disappointed now. I'm a massive believer in life's about opportunities, sliding door moments, and you know, you can think about sport's a great example of this. You know, you've got classic examples of teams. I mentioned Greece earlier, and Denmark did it in the Euros. You know, do you want to be that team that gets to the final and doesn't win, or look at Spurs. They should have won the league that year, and Leicester won it. They didn't. They basically ballsed it up. So I think that, yeah, you know what? Start of the season, particularly once we got into the Gerrard era, you know, towards the end of that, you'd just be happy to stay up. But now the game has changed. You know, we are, since Emery arrived, the game since we've played since he came on board, we're third in the league behind Man City and Arsenal. Yeah. And that's across, you know, we're not looking at a form guard at 5 games. It's across 16 games now, whatever it is, something like that. So maybe more. So I think we've proven ourselves to be a really good team, and he's really good at getting results out of one-off games, proven by his record as a cup manager. So when you've got to play all the teams around you, I think it would be a massive missed opportunity. It wouldn't surprise me if we showed a bit of, you know, the old frailties and lost a couple of the games and maybe got picked, because you've got, you know, Chelsea quite far back now, but you've got Liverpool close to us, some other good teams. Brighton have got a couple of games in hand. But I would be really disappointed if we didn't take the opportunity now, because I do think it could kick us on faster than if we didn't get in Europe. There's a lot of talk from some Villa fans. Do we even want Europe? Are we ready for it? When you've got the funds that the manager's got, when you've got the history of the club, but also all of the good things that are happening around the club generally, the women's team are doing great. We've got, you know, stadium plans. You know, we've just been nominated for one of the grounds for the Euro bid. There's so much positivity at Villa right now that to get European football would be such a positive injection for the club that I think we've got to try and grasp the opportunity wherever it takes.
Your comment there, Kevin, actually leads me nicely. I've got a couple more questions after this, but your comment there leads nicely onto this from Michael Pomar, who says, not trying to stir the pot here, but I'm a little bit ignorant of where Villa are with FFP. Is there a potential issue there, or is the Grealish fee still helping?
Oh, question.
Yeah,
I don't know the absolute ins and outs of this, but from everything I've heard and from what reports have been, I don't think it's a massive concern like it is with teams such as like an Everton, whatever, that have massively overspent. I mean, that Grealish example, we've got 100 million quid for Grealish, and we spent most of it on the 3 players I mentioned earlier, but it's not like we spent loads of money. In the summer just gone, we bought, I think, Coutinho for maybe 17 million. Carlos was 20 odd. Kamara was a free. Then Duncan maybe 13. Bednarek on a loan. Moreno we've bought in the January. We've not bought loads of players, and we've actually sold a few as well. So I don't see it as being a massive issue by all accounts. Particularly some of the players we were linked with in January. You know, we were linked with Thuram. I know you've been linked with him. We were linked with Guendouzi. You know, you're going to be having to pay out some wages in some of these players. So, I mean, I might be naive to that, but I don't think, based on also the money we've spent in recent seasons, I don't think it's a massive issue for us.
Guendouzi is a top player, by the way. People on Loaded will know that I've talked about him very, very positively. I'd love him. I'd love him to wear the black and white. I've got to be honest with you, Kev. I think he's a terrific player, playing very, very well at Marseille. But sorry, I'm going off.
No, mate. What are your thoughts, Billy? What do you with the FFP?
Yeah, I completely agree. To be honest with you, I'm not too sure on the ins and outs. However, I don't think it's too much of a worry for us. I mean, please correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, but I believe Christian Purslow, our CEO, was one of the men behind implementing financial fair play as well. So he's going to know all of the ins and outs. If there's any loopholes, for whatever reason, hopefully he should know. So I don't think there's really too much to worry about on the Villa front anyway.
Yeah. The thing is, financially wise, we are, you know, I know, like, obviously you've got extremely wealthy owners, and obviously Man City as well, you know, teams like PSG as well. But I mean, how many billions can you have? You know, there's only so many players you can have in your squad. It's like, you know, if we're all going to do a weekly shop and I've got 5 million and you've got 6 million, we're all right, aren't we? You know, if you're talking billions and billions, and our owners, I think, 3rd, 4th, 5th richest in the Premier League. So, you know, I know you've got to obviously be within your means and, you know, wages and all that, all the like of that. But I don't think money's really an issue for us. I think we're in the strongest position we've ever been in.
Right, boys, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. If I don't get to your questions, by the way, anyone in the chat, I'm really sorry. We've had some fantastic questions tonight, so it's been difficult getting through them all. So I'm just going to do a couple of quick fire questions now. So Lisa Mole asks, Billy, Kevin, which Newcastle player are you most worried about?
All of them. Eddie Howe. I think that probably just sums up everything, to be honest with you. Your league position speaks for itself. I'd probably, if I have to pick a player, it'd probably be Isak with the vein of form that he's picked up recently. I mean, he's just a fantastic player. But I could pick any one of the 11.
What about you, Kevin?
I mean, what a player Bruno Guimaraes is. Fantastic. Isak's been absolutely tremendous as well. I mean, I think in spells, I think, you know, he's been a bit hit and miss at times, but I think when he's had moments, even when he first came into the team, remember that Liverpool game? I think he had one disallowed, which was an absolute banger, scored another great goal. And I saw him obviously playing for Sweden as well. And he's a top player. I also think Trippier's what a great player Trippier is, you know, dead balls and the like. So, and we've mentioned a few of the ones, some of them maybe more unsung heroes, but, you know, Almiron absolutely tore us a new one when we played you at St. James's. I just think that you've got threats around the team, really. And by the way, Wilson, I think, is quite an underrated striker as well, you know, when Wilson gets going. But if I had to pick one, I think it would be Alexander Isak. I think for me, I think it's a striker that. The one thing I would say is I look at your front 2 options, and I wish we had that as an option for us. We've got Duran's got all the potential in the world. Our young Colombian guy, 19 years old, but he's very raw. I think if we had a player like, you know, we were linked with Wilson actually, I think when you got him, but if we had Watkins and Wilson as a possibility, it just gives you a different dynamic. So I'm probably more scared about what you can do off the bench in terms of what you could create.
Now I'm going to ask you one more question, and then I'm going to ask you a question I'm going to throw in last minute. So apologies for anyone when I've missed your question, but I'm really interested to hear Billy and Kevin's thoughts on this. But this one from Jonathan Keys asks, Bruce or Gerrard, which one was worse?
Gerrard.
What?
Ooh.
No way.
Wow.
Gerrard.
Yeah.
Gerrard.
I wasn't expecting that.
We've talked about this a lot on our pod, actually. So Rich Sutherland and I, we sort of mostly host the pod together. And we were both big advocates of Gerrard based on his playing career, and then what he did at Rangers. Felt he'd be that fresh young manager, great ideas, what an absolute winning attitude, personality. It became apparent from everything we've seen that Michael Beale was the brains behind that Rangers success. When I saw early interviews when the likes of Martinez were saying that basically it's like we've got two managers in Beale and Gerrard, and you start to realise the sort of dynamic, in terms of what that manager was. But what he did to the club, I mean, all accounts, alienating players. Mings has been arguably our best player this season. I think Mings has been an absolute colossus. Yeah. I know he gets a lot of heat, but the consistency he's shown since Emery's come on board has been unbelievable. He jettisoned him out of the team, dropped him from captaincy, gave it to McGinn. McGinn's wasn't naturally the best of that initially. Got Watkins out of the team. Douglas Luiz, who I think should be nailed on for the Brazil squad, out of the team. He seemed to alienate loads of players. And by the way, it gets forgotten, our form was absolutely terrible post-Christmas and then pre-sacking. We were getting beaten by teams. I mean, we couldn't beat Leeds when they had 10 men. We couldn't beat Forest when they couldn't beat anybody. We lost at home to West Ham's only away game win of the season. I still think is Villa back in August when they beat us at Villa Park. Yeah. We lost to Bournemouth on the opening day of the season. Fulham beat us 3-0 away. We were just absolutely abject. And the thing with Bruce, I know Bruce has got his limitations, but, he got us to a playoff final. Admittedly, I think he's kind of time run out. But Gerrard, for me, hands down. I think the next club that gets Gerrard, I wish them all the luck in the world because they're going to need it.
What about you, Billy?
Wow. Yeah, I completely agree with everything Kevin should have said, to be honest.
Good man, crazy. I
wasn't expecting that. Well, my question at the end to you is, my question at the end is, I want to know which three teams, in your opinion, are going down this season. Thankfully, we're not getting discussed in this, which is great. But who's your three?
Hang on, I need to get the table up a second.
Oh, I know my three. Southampton, Forest, and Everton.
I like that.
Yeah.
You see, for me, it was, for the longest time anyway, it's been Southampton, Bournemouth, and another. I think of late, it would probably have been Leicester, but I genuinely believe Dean Smith's arrival could turn them around.
Yeah, I agree.
So I think for me, just looking at it briefly here, it's going to be Southampton, Leeds, and I really don't want to say it because on the 12th man, I absolutely adore Dave. He's just fantastic.
Oh no!
But I think I'm going to have to say Forest.
You do know he watches this, by the way.
I know, yeah. It pains me to say it. I'm going to have to send him a message after this. Yeah, I'd love nothing more for Dave's sake, more than anything, for Forest to stay up. But I just think Bournemouth are just on such a good run. I think West Ham, Wolves, and Palace are probably out of it now. Everton, Sean Dyche, I think he'll keep them up by the skin of their teeth. And like I say, with Leicester, I think Dean Smith will turn them around and get them enough points to stay up as well. So, unfortunately, they're the three that stay.
I'll just add to that. I just think Forest's recent form is just so bad. They've looked at 8 or 9, they've not won 4 now. They're plummeting. They really are. I totally agree. I think Dean Smith, with Shakespeare's going back to the club, obviously that he was assistant manager when they won the Premier League, unbelievable. Obviously he knows a lot of the players really well. You can see the shrewdness behind that appointment. Some people are saying, Dean Smith, why has he got the job? Well, he kept Villa up when we were 7 points adrift with only 4 games to go. So he's got history of doing that. I think he was unlucky at Norwich, really, with the job and where they were going as a club. Shakespeare knows that club really well, and Terry's obviously got a good caliber and pedigree when he was at Villa as well, and obviously as a player. So I think Leicester will pick up. And when I did predictions, we did have predictions on the show last night, actually, our sort of running predictions. I just think Everton, I don't know if I'll get enough points. I know that Dyche's a great manager, by the way. I think he's good. He does a really good job, but I just don't think they've got anything up top. Anything. I mean, probably the worst team I've seen at Villa play this season is Everton. Southampton weren't great as well, but Everton have been so poor. And I know he's made them a bit more solid, but I think Leeds have got just enough. I know they've got a heavy defeat the other day. They picked up a few points. Palace and Hodgson, I think, will be all right. And Bournemouth keep winning games when you don't expect it. So, I just think for me, I mean, we could have it all totally wrong with how tight it is, but I'd say those three.
Can you imagine if it went to the final weekend or something like that? The final 2 weekends where you've got like 5 teams that could go down.
Do you know what we did last night when we were doing the running? We were going week by week by week. We got to game week 37, and I was like, right, Rich, how many teams could still go down in our parallel universe? And it was like pretty much the entire bottom 6 or 7. You're going to see a situation like on the last day of the season where you're going to be shooting to the Soccer Saturday pundits, go, massive goal at the King Power. Yeah. It's going to be really exciting, and I think you're going to get that for Europe as well. It could even be Newcastle, Spurs, Man United, seeing who's going to get top 4, who's going to get Europa League, Villa, Brighton, Brentford, Liverpool for Europe. So it's just
Villa and Brighton play each other as well.
Yeah.
We've got Liverpool and Brighton 2 weeks in a row.
Honestly, it could be the first time ever that there could be the vast majority of the Premier League fixtures actually live, because they tend to do that, don't they? They tend to have the relegation games live because they want to catch the action as it goes in. And they also, if there's a fight for the title, if there's a fight for Europe, the Champions League, whatever it is.
Could be all 3, couldn't it? Could be all 3.
Literally, could be all. You're absolutely right, Chris. And that it could be the vast majority of the Premier League games are live, and they're going to have to put them over Sky,
literally,
and BT to be able to house them all. Like,
do you know? I looked at this, by the way, in terms of teams that have something to play for, and I think it's only Fulham who are playing Palace, where probably both of them will have nothing on. That's probably it. Every other game will have relegation, Europe, or
title to be decided, top 4 to be decided, Europa League to be decided, and 5 or 6 teams battling out to stay up in the league, right from 20th to about 14th or something. It would just be nuts, wouldn't it?
And we thought last year couldn't be beaten.
Yeah. And I think you'll see as well now, like, the next few games where goal difference. I think teams down there are going to have to start going for it a little bit, because if you go down on goal difference, it can be tight. If you beating a team 2-0 right now, I know it's a slightly risky move, but I think sometimes teams down there might have to take the opportunity to get a couple of goals if they can, because it could be all the difference when you get to the last day.
Yeah, right, boys. I think we're at the end. It's some fantastic questions. Thank you, lads and lasses in the chat for putting those questions in. Villa 1982 is getting a lot of love from Newcastle fans in the chat. Great to have you in there. Some great opinions and great chat as well, and questions thrown in there too. So great to have the Villa perspective in the chat as well. We always encourage a lot of away fans to get their points in. But we get to the predictions time. Predictions now. Love is in there for Billy. Anyone that watches the 12th Man will know Billy absolutely spot on with that, and great to have you on there as well. But predictions, and we'll go around the houses. So, Chris, I'm going to come to you at 2:30 on Saturday. What do you think the score is going to be?
I think I'm going to steal Keith's thunder here. I'm going to say 1-1. I'd be happy with that, by the way. I'd be happy with that.
Are you not going to go with Desmond? Are you not, Chris?
No, I can't see there being 4 goals. No, I think it'd be quite tight, and I think it'll be 1-1. And someone in the chat mentioned it earlier. I think Villa score first, and then we equalise. And I would happily take a point now, actually, going to Villa Park.
Okay, Kev, from a Villa perspective, what do you think the score's going to be?
Well, we've said it. I don't want to kind of tempt fate or not, but we've scored in every single game under Emery. We're the only team in all 4 leagues to have scored, this year in every game. And so we generally always score, and you're really good defensively, aren't you? So I think it's going to be 1-1 as well. That's my prediction. And I also too would really take that as a result. I'll be delighted with a 1-1 at home against Newcastle.
Interesting. Okay. Billy, what do you think the score's going to be?
I thought I was going to be different. But I completely agree with Chris and Kevin. I think it's going to be 1-1. I would absolutely take that. Do I think that we can beat you? I do. Do I think you can beat us? Absolutely. So yeah, I would snap your hand off for a draw now. And it's nice to hear, considering how well you've done, that Chris would be happy with a point as well. So, just give me a point. It's going to be a great game for the neutral. I think there's a lot riding on it anyway. So yeah, fingers crossed for a result for Villa.
Definitely. Look, I'm going to throw mine in there before we come to Keith. I'm going to stick to my predictions because it's worked so far. And I think I've done the last 2 or 3 games, and I've said Newcastle to win 2-1. I think it'll be a tight game, but I think both teams will score. But I do believe that Newcastle will win 2-1. And I was right on Saturday with regards to the Brentford game. I was more than right on the Wednesday before that against West Ham, where we ended up smashing them 5-1. But don't think it'll be that type of game for sure. But I'm going to go 2-1 Newcastle. But it's going to be very, very interesting. And of course, we come to Keith, the old Linter. We can mix between the two. We flash it up.
Where's Dr. No? Where's Blofeld? Where's Dr. No?
Don't worry.
I want the cat.
They're coming. They're in the works. Don't worry about it. But Keith, everyone wants to know your prediction for Saturday. What do you think it's going to be score-wise?
Got a couple of stats just to round off that I didn't include, which I should have included at the time. Both the guests have mentioned about Villa's scoring record under Emery. Aston Villa have scored at least once in all 17 Premier League games so far under Unai Emery, 30 games in total there. Only 2 managers as well have seen a side score in each of their first 18 games in charge. So that's a brilliant record for Unai Emery. Also as well, Villa, 6 wins in the last 7 as well. So they're on a great vein of form as well as Newcastle are at this minute in time. And I think it's going to be an entertaining, thrilling game. I think Newcastle will end their losing run at Aston Villa of 3 games. And I think it'll be a thrilling 1-1 draw with Alexander Isak scoring for Newcastle.
Ooh, okay, so he's gone with the 1-1 draw with Kev and Chris, I believe, and Billy. I think all 3 of you, all 4 of you. Sorry, I'm hearing the difference. You will go for 1-1 draw. 1-1 draws pretty much around the houses, apart from me, guys. And we're seeing that it's going to be a 1-1 draw on the cards. I've gone for a 2-1. Many others in the chat have gone for something a little bit different. But yeah, no, very, very interesting. I think this is probably the 1 week, Keith, where most people will go, you know what? Yeah, fair enough.
If you look at the history as well of that fixture in the Premier League, just from earlier, I think it's 9 wins, 8 draws, and 8 defeats. So it's right down the middle, isn't it? Really, that fixture at Villa Park. The game at St James's it's the record's always been Newcastle's, bar the 2 infamous 3-0 and the 1-0 wins when Shearer was sent off. But other than that, the game's always pretty much been dominated. Newcastle at St James's. The game at Villa, it could go either way, but more likely to be a 1-1 draw.
Interesting. Very interesting. Well, we'll keep an eye on that one. That's for sure. But look, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for Billy, Kev, for your opinions on all things Villa. It's been a really, really good chat. That's for sure. Keith with the stats absolutely spot on as always. And the old Brandy and Blaze back in business. Chris, always a pleasure, never a chore. To share the screen with you. Just before we go, we have to say a huge thank you to everyone with regards to our sponsors. So a huge thank you to the Radiator Shed, radiatorshed.com. Thank you for all your support, Russ and the team. And of course, we've got Keith and Billy in the prison, and rightly so, Newcastle and Villa combined. And of course, Radiator Shed, they provide top quality materials made from plate steel, providing longevity. All designs are manufactured in Italy. Aluminium rads are very environmentally friendly and are perfect for heat source pumps. And look, they offer a home survey and will install if required, and lots of fantastic options available to us. We also have a fantastic newest sponsor, Bathroom Designs H2O, the Northeast's largest supplier of Villeroy and botched bathroom wear, Team Valley Gateshead, over 20 years established and run by the family. Get down to anywhere in the showrooms on 11th Avenue, Valley Estate, Gateshead, to get your bathrooms sorted. And of course, if you haven't seen the pictures before, there's some fantastic bathrooms available. Of course, if you're interested in your bathrooms, my wife keeps banging on my door to get a new bathroom. Haven't seen these pictures, so I've now got to find the money to be able to provide that bathroom, which is going to be a tough ask. But as well, if you want to become a member, and we've had some new members tonight, so thank you to those members that have joined the Loaded family. Click that join button. You can only do it on laptop. You can't do it on a mobile phone. But $1.99 a month, become a member. And of course, Chris, case in point, is the guy that will be sorting out our prize draws, and there'll be one coming up very, very shortly, no doubt. So if you want to be part of that spinny wheel, as we always see, make sure you become a member of Loaded Mag NUFC, and with a chance of winning some fantastic prizes and being a part of the channel, of course. Guys, that is it. It's been an absolute pleasure. If you haven't already, anyone in the chat, lads and lasses, click that like, click that subscribe button. We've had a number of new subscribers tonight, so thank you very much. And of course, we are going to be back with some more, and I'll just promote very, very quickly what we've got to come. So we have the Villa reaction on Saturday night, hopefully from a Newcastle perspective, with 3 points in the bag. So keep an eye on that as well. And if you haven't watched the show before, your answers question, which was last night, your questions answered. We had lots and lots of different questions around Champions League, Europa League, and various other things. And of course, I promote this separately. If you haven't yet donated to our charity game, we're playing against Newcastle Fans TV, the Loaded Boys, on the 29th of April at the Newcastle NUFC Foundation. Get yourselves on there. Get yourselves donating to a fantastic cause, the Gateshead Food Bank. We're already nearly at our target, which was £200. Fantastic. Thank you to Ian McKenna last night for your £100 donation to a fantastic cause that went in today. If you haven't already donated, it's for a great cause. Please do so. It means the most to us. But just a little tip for you: if you want to donate, don't donate to the channel. Donate to the Just Giving page, because with the channel, whenever you donate to the channel, YouTube takes 30%, and we would hate for 30% to be taken away from your donation to the Gateshead Food Bank. So donate directly to the Just Giving page. It's up on our channel. It's up on our account on Twitter. So make sure that you give to that page rather than give to the channel. Obviously, if you want to donate to the channel separately, by all means, it helps us move forward and continue our good work. But yeah, just for the Just Giving page, make sure you do that directly. That's for sure. But look,
Just to jump in as well, Pete, just to add in, we've already had some donations via the channel, haven't we, for me and McKenna and a couple of others as well. Really, really generous. What we're going to do, we're gonna top up to make sure 100% goes over to the foundation. So any donations that have previously been made, we will put the money to it. But as Pete said, from now on, if you've got any. If you'd like to make any donations for the Just Giving page towards the Gateshead Foundation, use that link below, please. Thanks for putting that up, Daz.
Definitely. Top man Daz, as always, and we'll get it out there. And we'll have the Newcastle Fans TV boys on very, very soon to talk tactics and banter in the build-up to the game. Simon says what time the game is. It kicks off at 12 o'clock on the 29th. At the Newcastle NUFC Foundation, so make sure you're there. There's about 60 people that can come and view the game, so make sure you get there early if you want to view the game. And boys, that is it. Absolute pleasure. Gone on way beyond than what we expected to, but it's been such a great chat, and we always have fantastic guests. But Kev and Billy have been superb, as always, as Villa representatives. So thank you very, very much.
Can I just say one final thing, by the way? Good luck with your charity game, but I hope that's the only lunchtime victory that you get in the next few weeks.
I second that.
Of course, from a Villa's perspective, that's the case. And
yeah, but all jokes aside, like good luck. I think he's a break at the top four will be a real confidence boost for a lot of other teams behind. So listen, this weekend aside, all the best for it. Good luck.
And to you as well.
Absolutely.
And hopefully we're both sitting playing European football next season. That'll be the hope, and we disrupt those traditional top six, as we say. But guys and girls, thank you very, very much. Of course, we do love playing away. Guys, how do you like that?
Drink it, like me, then tell me if you like that.